everyone. The time is now 9:34 a.m. and a quorum of the board is present. The State Board of Education meeting of April 9th, 2019 is now called to order. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda in the order of priority. Are there any items that board members would like to add or delete from the agenda?
I'm just going to ask if my board members would be so kind. I have to step out towards the end of the meeting, and I'm wondering if there's any way that we could arrange. Let me look at where's his location. And I'm wondering if we could do the item under 3, and if we could switch items E and D.
We do Benton Harbor first and then a presentation?
Yeah.
So reverse,
Yes.
Benton Harbor would become
Will they be here?
Benton, will they be here? This is in the afternoon?
Meaning that they won't be
Yes,
here on
in
time.
the afternoon. So it would be, the Benton Harbor presentation would begin at 1:15, and the presentation of the Perkins plan would begin at 1:45.
You can chat, okay.
I also want to, I don't,
Yes.
I was going to make a motion or to try to amend regarding the social studies standards, but I want to make it clear, it's not on the action items, but we are going to vote on whether or not to send them out, aren't we?
No, our past practice, Tom, has been not to vote to send them out. I looked back at the board meeting of May 2018, when the social study standards were presented to the board before they went out for public comment, and the board does not vote on sending them out for public comment.
Right, but we've delayed sending them out, so how, not social studies standards, but standards in the past. So, it seems like there can be an action item to delay it. I mean, I don't think they're ready. I think they're, the Judge Warren's memo makes it clear that they're not ready. They're extremely biased. They're very, cobbled together and there's no consistency, a lot of chaos, as he mentions it. So I just was wondering if there's going to be a vote. If there's not going to be a vote, then I'd want to just make a motion or try to make a motion to amend the agenda to remove it, because I don't believe it's ready.
I think that would occur during discussion. When the standards are presented and the board discusses with the presenters.
So there can be a vote.
You could make a motion, I suppose.
Could make a motion to have,
Okay. Okay.
Sandra?
No, I think I don't have anything.
Okay. Anyone have anything else? So we do have a motion to amend the agenda to adjust items 3 to exchange D for E and E for D.
Okay,
And I think that he's gonna check to see,
If time
so.
permits or
Yes,
whatever.
right,
if the presenters are available,
Right.
if the presenters are available.
okay. So I,
Support.
yep, good.
Motion and support,
Pam moved it. Yeah, I'll support it.
okay. Any other discussion on this? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, amendment to the agenda then is approved.
Do you need a separate motion for the agenda
Now we
itself?
need to
Alright.
vote on the agenda as amended.
So moved?
And
Second.
is, okay, we have a motion and support for the amended agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, both motions carry. Thank you. And at this time, Marilyn, would you please introduce members of the State Board of Education?
I certainly will. You've just been listening to the chairperson of the board, Sheila Alice. She's the interim state superintendent. And as we go around the board table to the left, Cassandra Albridge lives in Rochester Hills. She's the board's president. The board's vice president is Pamela Pugh, and she resides in Saginaw. The board's secretary, Michelle Fecto, resides in Detroit. Nikki Snyder is a board member, and she lives in Dexter. Tiffany Tilley usually is seated next to Nikki, and she is this year's Teacher of the Year.
No,
No, no.
no, Tiffany totally is.
Tiffany is board member.
Somebody else should do this. Tiffany's on her way. She is a board member, and she's from Southfield. Laura Chang is the Teacher of the Year. She will not be here today. She's in Dubai doing Teacher of the Year things. And you'll hear more about that later. As we go across the table, Josh Nayert represents the governor today at the board table, and he's usually here with us every month. And next to him is Judy Pritchett from Washington Township. She's board member. Lupe Ramos Montini, board member from Grand Rapids. Next to me, the board's treasurer, Tom McMillan, and he resides in Oakland Township. And I'm Marilyn Schneider. I'm the state board executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And now we will introduce new members to the MDE team, beginning with Scott Kennischek.
Great, thank you, Sheila. So I am joined by some new members of our P20 division, joined by Don Kolkman, Deb Drick, Nancy Campbell, and Sarah Radu. I had a pleasure of meeting with them over the last month. They all bring a wealth of experience in each one of their respective areas. And so if you don't mind, I just ask maybe Nancy, starting with you, if you just want to stand up and tell us who you are, where you came from, and the experience you bring.
Sure. Good morning, I'm Nancy Campbell. I come from the
Hi, good morning. I'm Sarah Radu. I work for the Office of Special Education. And my experience is classroom teacher experience as well as
Good morning, I am Dawn Kaufman. I work for the Office of Great Start as a GSRP consultant. I come having been a GSRP teacher and partner, an ISD, early childhood specialist, and early childhood director. I also work for the Head Start agency up in the northeast corner of Michigan, servicing 9 of our counties. I actually am the president of my own local school board in Reese, Michigan. Happy to be here.
Hi, my name is Deb Drick. I am new to the Office of Great Start in the Child Care Development area. I'm the contract administrator for all the funds in Child Care Development. I live in Livingston County, and I came from the legislature.
So they were all far too humble, I guarantee you. They bring, again, a great amount of expertise and experience, and look forward to working with them in our P20 division.
Thank you, Scott. And Ross, will you now introduce new members of your division?
Yeah, we have 2 new staff members, and I'd like to introduce Mike Kelly. He's in the Health and Nutrition Office. He also has the cube beside me, so he's great. And Adam Oster with the Library of Michigan. So Mike, if you could just start off and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, my name is Mike Kelly. I am a financial analyst with the Office of Health and Nutrition Services. This is my first job in a government job. I've got several years of experience in accounting and finance with private companies. I grew up here in Jackson, Michigan, and I've lived the last 15 years in Chicago area, so happy to be back home in Michigan, happy to be working with the state, and my wife teaches. I've got 3 sons, so I'm glad to be working with the Department of Education also.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Oster. I'm the new community engagement librarian for the Library of Michigan. So I am originally from the west side of the state. I am originally from Zeeland and spent the last about 10 years or so in the Grand Rapids area living in Byron Center. And just recently moved here. I've spent 18 years working in libraries. The last 9 has been for Kent District Library at their Kentwood branch as a librarian there. And really looking forward to now working for the state here in Lansing, showcasing all the great collections and services that the Library of Michigan offer.
Thank you. Do we have any other new employees in the room?
I'm not sure I understand.
Let me try that again. Seeing none, let's welcome our new employees. And now I'd like the members of the audience to please introduce themselves, and we'll start with Marty Ackley.
Good morning. I'm Martin Ackley. I'm the Director of the Office of Public and Governmental Affairs here at the Department of Education.
Good morning, I'm Stacy Bogard with the Michigan Association of School Boards.
David Michelson, Michigan Education Association.
Bill Pearson, Director of Partnership Districts and School Reform Officer.
Lisa Hansknecht with Oakland Schools.
Jamie James with the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals.
Morning, Steve Ezekian, Deputy Superintendent.
Hi, Alicia Fly, Assistant Superintendent from the College Intermediate School District.
Karen Slunger, Superintendent of Calhoun Intermediate School District.
Anna Peterson, Executive Director, Dearborn Public Schools.
Glenn Maleko, Superintendent.
Next row.
Laura Nersassian with the Armenian
Vesperian, Armenian Genocide Education Committee, Teacher Training.
Chandra Matafari, Vice President of Michigan Education Association.
And Quinn, Public Policy Associates.
Kevin Lavery, the WKAR Education Reporter.
McKenna Ross, Gongwer News Service.
Tom Torrento, Director of Bands, Grosse Pointe Public Schools, and current Region 9 Teacher of the Year.
Ross Ford, Special Assistant to Deputy Superintendent Kyle Grant.
Scott Kenishnik, Deputy Superintendent for P20 Transition and Students Transitions.
Vanessa Kiesler, Deputy Superintendent for Educator, Student, and School Sports.
Mark Howe, Office of the Superintendent.
Once again, thank you everyone for being here. If any of you plan to offer public comment at today's meeting, please complete a form and get it to Marilyn. Forms are available on the table just outside of the boardroom, and they must be submitted prior to the beginning of the portion of the meeting dedicated to public comment. Public comment will begin immediately following the lunch break scheduled for approximately 1 p.m. Please be here on time to ensure that you have an opportunity to provide comment. Moving on to the first item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is a presentation of Dearborn's collaborative professional learning model. Today, we welcome Dr. Glenn Maleko, Superintendent of Dearborn Public Schools, as well as Superintendent of the Year, as awarded by the Michigan Association of Superintendents and Administrators. Glenn and his team have been presenting on Dearborn's collaborative professional learning model at both state and national conferences, and today they are here to share with us the work that they are doing involving their professional collaborative learning model. So we're anxiously looking forward to your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to come and present before you. We appreciate the great work that you do here at the Michigan Department of Education, Superintendent Alice and the board. We're very grateful for the support that we get in Dearborn schools, and we know it's important. I could tell you my history just briefly. I've been 24 years in education, started as an elementary teacher, worked my way up through principal ranks. I worked for Brian Whiston as his HR director. I will say this right now, I got hired after he left and came here. He was a friend to me and a mentor, and I wouldn't be here today in this position if it wasn't for him. So I just wanted to put that out there. Secondly, I am pleased to announce that our Board of Education actually approved last night naming our Welcome Center at our central office after Brian J. Whiston, so we're very pleased with that. And I know you have a fountain. I was here for the ceremony in the summer when you had the fountain named after Brian, so I wanted to put that out there, and I'll let them kind of give a quick glimpse of their history.
Sure. Jill Trokel. I started in education, Detroit Public Schools, as a classroom teacher, early childhood major, and was a reading specialist. Did 6 years with the Michigan Department of Education as a consultant, and Brian Whiston hired me as a principal in Dearborn, his first year there. So I had the good fortune to work with him for a number of years. I've been part of the cabinet at central office now for 8 years.
Shannon Peterson. It's my 29th year in education. I started as a high school teacher, spent about 12 years in middle school, and then became an assistant principal. Brian hired me as a principal in Dearborn, and then one day called me up and asked me to consider applying for a central office position, and here I am. So I did have a privilege also of having Brian influence my career.
So I'll just mention some of the handouts we have. We actually have the presentation that we're going to go through. We're going to end with a video, and I know we have 20 minutes and then time for questions, so if you feel free to stop me, though, if necessary. I also gave you a packet of some highlights of our district, some of the positive things. This was the cover of the MASA magazine publication where our vision was put on the cover from the story that was done last summer. And then I just gave you, this is our monthly newsletter. You'll see that I'm very active electronically in social media, but we also know that print is still an aspect of our community. And so we do mail these out to every household in Dearborn once a month to just provide that information for those that prefer. You can get it electronically with a QR code as well, but we still have that members of our community that prefer it that way. So I'll kind of move on. I'll go through here. So just our mission for Dearborn Schools, and I'm not going to read it, but I do want to let you know if you're following us on social media. In fact, we're going for a renewal of our strategic plan. Tonight we have a meeting, and we've been working hard. We're at the end of 3 years, and that Students First, Inspire, Educate, Celebrate. You will see that everywhere. In fact, I do bring it all over. Our students in our district love to get in pictures with the superintendent and others. I have a huge Instagram following, and it's just a way to positively promote and brand our school district. And we do believe in that. It's one thing I also tell the board is that anytime we're making a decision, we're going to go back to this, to the students. How does it impact the students? We understand budget and other things, but that's our aspect. So it's just embedded in our culture, and you can see some pictures here all over. We have the mayor, we have new teachers being hired, we have students, and so again, that's just our vision in the school district. Just to give you a few highlights of our positive. You know what? I missed the demographic slide. 1 second. I have to go back, I think. Oh, okay, one of the slides on our demographics looks like it's missing, so I'll just have to add it. Cut out. So, just to give you a little bit of information, it looks like it got deleted. We have, including the bond, we have about a $300 million budget in Dearborn schools, 250 with grants and foundation, 41 schools, 35 buildings, 2,800 staff members, almost 21,000 students. We are the third largest district in the state. We also have a high number of free and reduced lunch population at 70%. We have 47% English language learners and 8% special education, just to give you a glimpse. We've been continued to grow while other districts have lost enrollment. We have grown. Now this year we finally stabled off and we lost a little, but we were on a constant growth over 4,000 in the last several years. So, which is obviously positive with the way the foundation money is allocated. Just a few other things. First ever Blue Ribbon School in the history of Dearborn Schools. One of 13 in the cross. So we're very proud. We've had 2 in a row, and we anticipate potentially another one next year. We're very proud of that. It's a show of our district. We also appreciate Erica Bolig from MDE, who's been very supportive as we've gone through those application process. It's been very positive. This is kind of what I was mentioning with the aspect that was on the cover of the MASA magazine. We also were recognized for our school improvement model, one of 45 from the District Administration Leadership Institute, which is a national superintendent organization. And so we were one of 45 districts recognized for our school improvement model. We're going to touch on that briefly a little later. But I do want to mention that we were very proud of this model because we have built an internal capacity and an internal accountability system within our district. Here are some other things just to give you we look at multiple measures and data, from the Mackinac Center rating our high schools in the top, including Fortson, almost 2,900 students at Fortson. We're from Henry Ford, historic Dearborn, and the first $1 million school. It's a historic site, but we also have a lot of students in that school, and so we're very proud of all of our schools. At one point, we did have one school that was a priority school years ago under Brian's watch, and I can tell you we turned that around, and we became a turnaround story that MDE was actually looking at us as a way to turn around, and some of it is within this model. So some of the things you're going to see here are things that I've enhanced over the last 4 years as superintendent, but some of it is also things that Mr. Whitson started under his leadership. We also were proud, we actually had 4 of 8 schools that were nominated for the National Title I Distinguished Award, and Maples Elementary received it. There were 2 that were awarded from the state of Michigan. So just to give you a little bit of some of the data coming out of Dearborn. And, you know, like I said, our accomplishments, we believe, are just a reflection of our entire district. And when one school hurts, we all hurt. And when one school is doing well, we all feel the success. And so we're one team here in Dearborn Schools. And I'm going to turn it over to Shannon to talk about some data.
So our graduation rates in 2010-11 were on a 3-year decline. And when I say a 3-year decline, they were like 76.8%, 76.6%, and then 76.02%. But it was enough for our district to say, hold up, we have to do something different, and worked with our high school principals to implement graduation intervention specialists in the high school. And this is the progress those gentlemen have made with our students, making sure that we intervene early and often with students that are starting to fall behind. So we're at a high at 94.7%. And often people will say, well, sure, that's just a diploma, what happens after? And as you can see, 80% of our students enroll in college within 6 months and 86% within 12 months of graduation. So, and when you look at our completion rates, we are slightly higher than the state, and our students show a little more persistence and grit. They take longer to graduate, but they stay in college longer, and we attribute that to many of our students having to work to pay for college, and it just takes a little longer when you have to do that.
I also want to mention, and I appreciate the support of MDE on our applications for the early college. So we are, our Board of Education, the only one in the state. They're my boss, and they're the boss of the Henry Ford College president. And we have a natural partnership. We have thousands of students that take dual enrollment classes. We're opening up our 3rd early college this year, and we have what we call a collegiate academy, where students basically enroll into a 5-year program and get a high school diploma and an associate's degree paid for by Dearborn Public Schools in cooperation with Henry Ford College. So we appreciate MDE's support with that, as we know what the cost of college is these days, and these students are, the new early college is going to be a pre-education early college, because we understand the teacher shortage that's going on across the state.
So we know that graduation rate doesn't start in high school. It starts when children are born, and certainly those first 5 years, that emphasis on early child education is important. So we measure student growth when they start in school. And so the next 3 slides are just a visual of student math, language, and reading growth. We happen to use NWEA, and our assessment director has a very good way of showing how our growth compares to NWEA's national average as one measure. And so you can see that the orange squares represent that national average, and then the different grade levels of achievement and growth represented by the green circles demonstrate where Dearborn students are growing relative to the norms. So measuring, proficiency is our goal, but certainly measuring growth from where students start is also a piece of that, and our teachers and our administrators and our parents work very hard to reinforce those concepts.
So just to give you, this is the formula that we look at that is successful. Just to, we know we got 20 minutes. Shared leadership. It's all about capacity building in the district, working together. You'll see that I never go on my own to a conference. I always bring a team member. We publish out there as well, and we publish together as a team. Professional learning communities, all the research is clear that you must work as a team in order to be effective, and we need to get teachers working together collaboratively along with administrators, and that's what we do. It's something that we've also negotiated time within our contracts to allow that to happen. Feeder track model, basically that's a vertical articulation, and I'm going to talk a little more about that after, but that is a model for getting a better feed between the elementary, middle, and high school, and we'll get into that a little more. I implemented that when I first became superintendent. School improvement, we're very proud of this model. This is what we call an internal accountability system in the district, and we've presented at the Advanced Ed Midwest region, the national and the state conferences, and we've actually published on that model. So we'll get a little more into that a little later. And then in Dearborn, the English language learners model. We've presented at this as a national and state conferences as well. We have to, because we have such a high number of students that are immigrant, refugee, and students that are coming in with little, their native language. So the ELL model is a critical aspect of our model in Dearborn. I can also tell you with the collaborative leadership, I lead by example. We have a central office structure of constant meetings where we collaborate together. Basically, if you want to work in Dearborn schools, you must work as a team and work together. Otherwise, this is not the place for you to come and work, because we know that we will be successful when we work together. So I lead by cabinet, and I have a large cabinet administration because of the size of our district of over 30 individuals on the team. Capacity building, I kind of mentioned this. As we're going out and we're presenting at conferences, and actually you're helping us right now because we're doing some additional capacity building today with the department, we just really believe heavily in that when we come back, who's going to benefit is our students. So I promote this with our teachers, with our staff, going to professional development, bringing it back and bringing it in a trainer model to our district. And we're happy to share information with other districts as well. In fact, we just got back from the National School Board Conference, and we had 3 presentations there, and I already got contact from multiple districts from outside of the state that want to come either and visit or Skype with some of the models we're implementing. I want to mention this too, I think, and I presented at the state conference on this a couple of times, and in fact, Brian Whiston and I presented 4 years ago at the national conference, co-presented on our labor management collaboration, working together with the unions. We have a great relationship in Dearborn. They have a seat at the table, and we work collaboratively. In fact, we're going to be getting an award in Lansing next month for our collaborative relationship with our unions and our employees. So we're very proud of that. We have multiple meetings. They have a seat at the table. We don't always agree on everything, but we always dialogue, and we make sure that that is built in. I think that's a critical aspect, and it's part of who we are in Dearborn Public Schools. Again, just a non-negotiable, working together as one team, and this is kind of what I tell any of the new employees that come into our district. This is just a non-negotiable for us, working together collaboratively. And here's just another quote. I'm not going to read it, but just kind of gives you the hint of these are the things that we believe in, and we believe in investing in our teachers. And so we like it when the Solution Tree and other conferences, they come and they have them in the summer, because we send multiple staff that go to these conferences on their own time when they're off in the summer. And so Detroit is actually going to host one this year. We were able to negotiate to get them to come to Detroit. So obviously it's going to save us a lot of money because it's a local conference for us. Okay, and the feeder track model. So what this is, I'm just going to mention, and their positions are relative to this. The feeder track is, so what I saw in my history in Dearborn and sometimes in education is, the high school likes to blame the middle school, to blame the elementary. And so what I did is I eliminated the secondary and elementary supervision. So you have 3 executive directors. We have 3 main high schools. So she supervises all the kindergarten through 12th grade up into Fortson High School. Dr. Chokol supervises in Etzel Ford, so it's kindergarten, so she has middle school, elementary, and high school that she supervises. And we have a 3rd executive director of student achievement. So it was a restructure. It was a way to get away from defending just your program at that level. And it's an amazing thing when they have the meetings in the buildings, and you'll see the high school principals are doing walkthroughs in kindergarten classes, second grade classes, and elementary are vice versa going into the high school, and it's just a real positive thing.
I think it's also eliminated some of the slip that comes between 5th to 6th grade and then 8th to 9th grade. And so easing those transitions for students and their families with the communication has been an asset.
And some of the feeder tracks have teacher committees as well, and what we found out when speaking to the teachers is the high school teachers never been in an elementary classroom. So we provided that opportunity so that the teachers in the classroom every day could see the differences and the work that they're doing.
And not only the instruction, but just they start building the relationships because the students know who they are at an earlier time.
5 minutes.
All right.
So as I said, our graduation rates have increased. We have graduation intervention specialists at each of our buildings. Fortson has 2 because of the size of the building. And they happen to all be gentlemen. They weren't originally, but they are now. They actually get involved with the student the minute they fail a class, so that they work with the family, they work with the student, and they get them into credit recovery courses. They determine, are there any other wraparound services we need to give a family? And what I will tell you is we looked at that last 5% that aren't graduating to see if there was anything we're missing, and there really isn't. These are life events that are happening that are affecting students. So actually trying to get to know the students sooner so that we can figure that out, because it's not a trend we're missing. It's an emergency, a family emergency, an illness, or economic issues.
So next we're going to talk about our school improvement process briefly, and I just want to mention that sometimes change and push is, you do have to go through some growing pains, and it can be difficult. And so that's why I have this research on second order change. It might be uncomfortable for individuals. I can tell you with our school improvement, and I'm going to let Ms. Peterson speak to it, but basically we go through every class in the district gets unannounced visits by our team that go into the schools and look for instruction. And we have teachers on the committee, we have administrators, it's our own internal accountability. It's a snapshot, but we then give the data back to the teams as they leave. And it's another way for us to measure and provide support for our schools. And again, I'm at almost every one of these visits. So I spend on average over 400 visits a year, school visits. You won't find me often in the office. I'm always in the schools with the students and with instruction.
So the executive director who oversees this process created with a committee, a diagnostic tool a rubric that we go into the classrooms with. The teachers are aware of it. They know the different best practices we're looking for, content, language, objectives, student engagement, questioning, the culture of the building. But everybody's aware of what it is, the lens that we're going into the classrooms in the school with. And I will say they are unannounced visits, and that came from the teachers. After doing years of announced visits, teachers said, hey, anyone can do this when they know you're coming. We'd like you to come in unannounced. We want you to see, we want authentic feedback. So, and now this year we also have parents involved. So parents sign up, they get a 45-minute notice, like, here's your day, here's your time, and it's really been a great learning experience. The parents walk with one of us, and they will use the rubric to give feedback with us. It's all electronic. We don't talk about it in a room together. Everybody documents observational feedback and a ranking on the rubric. It's all compiled and handed to the school within 24 hours.
And Advanced Ed has changed to that model of the unannounced. So we actually jumped on that a little prior, and we did have a very good review last year when they came in February. They also analyzed us and audited us for areas we need to improve, and we're going to continue to do that.
Well, and I think it's important to say the teachers understand, we know it's a snapshot. We're coming in for 15-minute classroom visits. This is not a final evaluation. This is a little picture. It's informative assessment for the leadership team in the school to work on.
So we talked a little bit about the percentage of English learners and some of the supports that they need. So we have made it a goal to increase the number of ESL certified staff in our classrooms, as well as having specialists, many of whom speak the language of many of our students, also who are certified, provide inclusive instruction, meaning they're going into classrooms and working with small groups of students or team teaching, co-teaching with the adults there in order to provide aligned service for students so that not only will they acquire the English language faster, but they will also understand the concepts and be able to demonstrate their learning in writing and numeracy. So we strategically, our director of EL and compensatory ed strategically assigns our ESL specialists to schools, and we work on that MTSS system of support for all students. The early childhood that I spoke of a little bit earlier, we have an early childhood center. We have 29 GSRP classrooms for our students. These are full-day programs, as well as an early childhood specialist model where we provide early childhood specialists, provide inclusive support in the classrooms. We determined from our assessments that about 90% of our students started kindergarten well below the mean, well below the 40th percentile. And so we determined that we were going to, with the support of our leadership of our Board of Education, we provided early childhood specialists to start collaborative intervention in kindergarten to catch kids up before they had a chance to experience failure in the later grades. So we started Young Fives classrooms. We have 14 Young Fives classrooms as well.
So I'll just end with, I'm going to cut out of this just because of playing. We have a little video we'd like to share. And on the slide there, which I gave you, I do have all my social media. So if you wanted to follow or join or anything, feel free. We'll probably have some pictures from this up on social media by the time I leave. So, all right, let's just see here.
Falling too fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody circling as vultures. Negative, nepotist. Everybody waiting for the fall of man. Everybody praying for the end of times. Everybody hoping they could be the one. I was born to run, I was born for this. Whip, whip, run me like a racehorse. Pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip, slip. Word up on your lip, lip. Rather that you rip, rip. Break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes. Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. Yeah, take me to the top. I'm ready for whatever it takes. Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do what it takes. Whip, whip, run me like a racehorse. Pull me like a ripcord. Break me down and build me up. I wanna be the slip, slip. Word up on your lip, lip. Rather that you rip, rip. Break me down and build me up. Whatever it takes. Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. Cause I love how it feels when I break the chains. Whatever it takes. Yeah, take me to the top. I'm ready for whatever it takes. Cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I'll do what it takes.
That concludes our presentation. We appreciate your time, and that's just our philosophy of whatever it takes to, for students first and doing what is necessary to make a difference in the lives of the students that we serve. So appreciate the work you do, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn and Jill and Shannon. Are there comments or questions from board members?
I have a comment. I'm really inspired. I was a classroom teacher, principal, and all that for 36 years. And what I hear often is public schools do not work. And when I was teaching, I proved that they do work. And today you prove that they do work. And I took some words out of your demeanor and your enthusiasm and your presentation. And you showed pride in what you're doing, commitment in what you're doing, collaboration. That's very, very important. And you think of the child, you think of the students first. And there was a powerful little video you have them right there. And, I was swinging to the music and you get into it, whatever it takes. And that should be the motto of us as a board, as a department, as parents, as teachers, as stakeholders, citizens, everybody. Whatever it takes to educate the child, we should be doing it. And so I commend you. I moved too because you work with Brian, and every time I'm driving into Lansing, I remember Brian and Susan. We lost them about the same time. So his mission is finished, but his legacy continues through us that he served. And I'm real pleased that you're here today. Thank you.
I could say with Brian, it was very emotional when the Chris Wygant came and Randy Lipa to provide me with the award that you mentioned in November, because it was literally, and Beth, his wife, had told me, it was literally 5 years to the day that Brian received the same award. And so it was, my family was there. It was very emotional. And then I know Superintendent Alice was at the Renaissance when we were able to, when he received the award from MASA, and I was addressing the group, and I wore one of his ties in his honor because, again, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, and I think we all feel that way. We've just, I come across things every day that I remember him and the impact. So we've told Beth, and I know other superintendents, that, he's living through a lot of us that are making a difference for the children. We're very passionate about that, so thank you.
And Michelle?
And I also am, really impressed with the work that you're doing and a lot of the innovations that you're doing, including the teachers and the parents and the process. So, but I just had some questions because, so you were growing at a time when, the population in the state overall is going down. So what was the source of the growth? Do you know where it was coming from?
We had a few things that we looked at. One was we had immigrant population. The other, we had increase at kindergarten. So we did have some students that were coming back from we're a closed district, so we're not an open enrollment district either, that were coming back from, some of the privates into our kindergarten. I think that was helping because they heard the positive program that we're implementing. The other thing I just think is positive and it's hard to find real estate now is Ford. Ford has invested additional dollars into Dearborn, and they're going to be revamping the world headquarters, and so they've invested in the downtown. So that's all. So a combination of those factors, I think, has been part of it. The other thing in Dearborn is sometimes you'll get, and I started out as a teacher on the southeast end near the Rouge factories, very immigrant population that's always been from German to Lebanese to Yemeni, and I think that a lot of the households here, we have more than the average of the less than 2 per child, is they have more children in the homes as well. That's another aspect.
I think our secondary options have brought, we
Yes,
see a big
sure.
increase between middle school and high school. And I think that all the secondary options that our families have provided, the dual enrollment, the collegiate academy, the early colleges, DC, our magnet school, our STEM high school, all of those I think are very attractive. And certainly when you're looking at students going to college and the expense of that, if they can accrue college credits or even an associate's degree at no cost to them, that's a huge benefit for families. So I think that has been, again, another source of enrollment.
I also had a question too. I mean, I know a lot of your focus, understandably, is on ELL, and it seems like a real model. So, but I'm wondering also about your special education, how they're included in this, the college. I mean, there's so much emphasis on test scores in college. So, how inclusive are they in your programming, or is it do you rely more on center base, or how? What do you?
Well, it's more, co-teaching is kind of the model we've implemented. And we do have some center-based, but really it's been more of an inclusive model. And in fact, and I'll let Dr. Chokol speak a little bit to it as well, because she supervises that area. But I actually, as a principal, was involved heavily in some of the co-teaching pioneering within our district and done training. I've actually authored some articles on this, and so we hired a new special education director. He's been there now 2 years, and he's done a great job at bringing that model in. I could tell you, though, the special ed is a struggle for finding certified staff. We're seeing that all over, so that's the challenge we have. And we are seeing that staff tend to jump around, too, because there's such a small pool in the specialized areas that it's almost, going from district to district. When I got hired years ago, we didn't see that happening. Now we see teachers, because the pool is dwindled, that they have the ability to move around. And I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
One of the other pieces that we looked at is that everybody who works in a school district is very invested in their job and their role. But what that also means is that they could be operating in silos. And so what started 9 years ago under the MTSS system, multi-tiered systems of supports, are the EL department, the general education department, and the special education department all brought their specialists together so that everyone became knowledgeable about what other people were doing for children, because you can have several people working with an individual student, but if that communication, if that understanding of what the roles are and what the services that are provided for students, if that isn't there, the student is not going to make as much progress.
Did you say the general ed teacher?
So gen ed, so
Gen ed
we
is
have,
in that
we have
group. Okay,
resource
okay.
teachers, we have instructional coaches, and so they receive professional learning together. Regularly, there are weekly meetings at each individual school where the specialists get together along with the classroom teachers to talk about what students need, students with IEPs, as well as general ed students. Our identification of special education students has dropped. In most areas, it has increased in the area of students diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. So again, that is an increase that I think is being seen. But it has dropped in the area of learning disabilities, and then we still have some static in POHI and in some of the other diagnosed areas.
We do have students with IEPs that are in our collegiate academy and some taking dual enrollment. At any given semester, we have about 2,800 classes taken dual enrollment. 93% of our students get a C or a higher. We do have a counselor on the Henry Ford College campus for our students, and the college provides a counselor for our students. So
And
if they
students with
have,
IEPs
right, and that's part of our MOU, our memo of understanding. So we do get supports for them if a student's disability is in math, and they can handle the college coursework in reading and writing, or psychology, or whatever that requires reading and writing, then we let them take it.
Thank you. Tiffany, and then to Nikki.
I really appreciate how proactive you guys are with your early childhood intervention and with the credit recovery program. And, you know, a lot of times when kids are failing, they're just looked at as problem children or whatever, but you guys are actually doing one-on-ones with them and finding out what's wrong with them, and like you said, adding those wraparound services. I wanted to know, what's the success rate for that credit recovery program?
Question, I'd have to do a little digging, but our graduation rate shows that it's working, right? Because that's on time, 4-year, 97%. So the students that, we don't have many failures in credit recovery, because even then, if they start missing, if they start not showing up, that call is made, that contact is made. So I can't give you a percentage, but our graduation rates and the fact that students are recovering credits so quickly demonstrates that. But we do get involved right away, because sometimes if a student is 5 classes behind, they feel like they're in a hole so big they can't climb out of. And so getting with the student right away the minute they have that first failure makes the difference, because they don't want to come back again. And after we've done a couple presentations on graduation intervention specialists now, we haven't been tracking them in our data management system. Our grad specialists have been tracking them. So now we're going to also be tracking them in the data management system, so we can run more reports to get a better handle on who they are. It's a pretty wide range. From Etzel Ford, there's EL students, there's general ed students, there's a couple of special education students. Right now he has 147 students that are off track that he's working with. But there's really no trend. It's a little bit of everybody's struggling. So, but we are, through the process of presenting on this, we learned that we needed to get a little bit better at making sure that in our data management system, they're identifying when they've made that connection for credit recovery, and so we can get a little better information.
We could probably get that data too. We could send it. I just say, you know, the specialist model too, it is really about that student first, that, you know, tracking down where are the students, finding out if someone's not showing up to school, calling, figuring out, going to find them within the community, you know, that just, and I had board members that asked me that, well, what do you do for that? You know, we were at 5, we still want to hit that 5%, you know, what about that 5%? But like, they pretty much know where all that 5% is, because they track them down and find out exactly why they're not successful in high school. And I would also say that it's not, when we present on the national conference, you know, it's one of those lagging indicators too. So it is that K-12 model. So that feeder track model, it's going to continue to grow as we get better at that articulation between the elementary, middle, and high school. So it's really a K-12 effort.
And kindergarten attendance is tied to graduation rate. So we track that attendance and track those families down from the first time they enroll in school.
Even the fact that you are getting them so early and helping improve those reading skills, that's going to help for the rest of their lives.
And we have the challenge of the transiency of, we do have students that come sometimes from overseas and then they leave, you know, so we do have those challenges in our district.
And I would say our graduation intervention specialists know that 5% by name. Like, they know, and they know the issues around the child. And they feel it's personal to them when they haven't helped a child succeed. It's very personal.
Thank you.
Thank you, and now Nikki.
I was just thinking about a word that I know is hot to touch, but accountability, and it being data-driven primarily, and we talk about that. It's a hot topic at the federal level, the state level, but you guys have brought up a few things in your presentation that I think is kind of behind-the-scenes work that is really important to note, that's really associated with accountability. Accountability isn't, a lot of people say it's a data-driven outcome, but you guys are tackling process of accountability. So restructuring principles, like you talked about, unannounced visits, bringing the specialists together. I mean, making it, the teamwork makes the dream work. You're really making that happen. So to me, that's, when you really break down what does accountability mean in relationship, in schools, and just in relationship in general to one another. There's a process to it more so than there is data collection. I think the process in many situations is probably more impactful than a number. So I just think what you're doing is good on that level.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And all the research I've read on exactly when you develop that, your own internal accountability system where each staff member is dedicated to each other for the students and their learning, that's when you're going to be successful. And that's what we have with our internal process that we've developed, which is much more helpful to us in our district than just the score. And I know, you guys have been dealing with some of the issues with the A to F and these other things because it keeps changing. But we understand that. We understand the work you're doing. We comply with that, but we also have our other multiple measures because we believe that when we get that data and we get those interactions with our teachers, that's really what's driving instruction, and that is really what's truly helping our students in the classroom. So thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Jill. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for always putting children first.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for coming today and sharing some of the many ways in which you demonstrate that students come first, children come first in Dearborn Public Schools. So thank you for your
Well, we
presentation.
appreciate the work you do, all of you do, and we thank you. Can I add one quick request? Would you hold my sign so I can get a picture with you guys? It would be great to go all over my social media. State board.
He does this everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Sheila knows.
So we're not special.
I know.
Get in one, too. Do you want to get it? You can take it. Okay, do you mind if we get it? All right, come on.
No one
Thank
tells you
Thank
no,
you for
do
your
they?
time.
First.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you.
to delay by a couple extra minutes.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, the next item on our agenda for the Committee of the Whole is a presentation on school finance research collaborative. The State Board of Education has made a commitment to providing a series of presentations on school funding, and this is the second in the series. And today's presentation is on the School Finance Research Collaborative, which is a bipartisan, diverse group of education experts and business leaders from all corners of Michigan. In 2018, the School Finance Research Collaborative completed a comprehensive school adequacy study here for Michigan. And Justin Silverstein helped to lead that study, and so he is here to present to the board today. Welcome to the State Board of Education. We are excited to have you here and very interested in your presentation.
Thank you all. This is actually, I've had a couple opportunities to present to you all over the past 3 or 4 years, and I thank you for the invitation again today. If you've had a chance to look at the presentation I have, you'll think this will be 3 hours. I plan to hit some highlights as I go through. The goal today really is to really focus on how and why we did this, and I'll go over the recommendations, but I think the recommendations have really been out there, but we really want you all to understand the process, why we picked the approaches we did, how they're implemented, how educators from Michigan were really deeply involved in this work, but also how we brought a large national research lens to the work at the same time. So that will be our goal. So we'll do a little introduction and background. We'll talk about these various adequacy approaches generally and then how they were used here. We had a number of other studies, and then again, I'll walk through the recommendations at the very end. So just briefly, the study team. APA, who I work for, is a Denver-based education consulting firm. We have been doing school finance for approaching 36 years now. I was not there the whole time. We have worked in all 50 states. We've worked in a number of countries, and we brought together what we think was really a team with the most school finance experience ever perhaps brought together for a school finance study. And we had a partner in Picus Auden Associates. And then we had a number of other national experts who came together, including Michael Griffith, who works very closely with the Education Commission of the States, Chris Stoddard and Jennifer Imazeki, who are two professors who are really in the cost function and cost variation school. And so there was over 100 years of combined experience, including within adequacy. APA developed this successful school district approach, which we'll talk about, and has implemented the professional judgment and really changed that the most over time. And then Picus Auden Associates developed the evidence-based approach. So we had the folks at the table who had really have developed this work over the past 20 years, leading the work at the same time. So the main focus of the collaborative's work was what we would call as an adequacy study. So it's really trying to answer this question of what does it take for students, teachers, schools, and districts to meet the state's performance standards. And so we're really talking about what do kids need to have as far as the resource side in order to ensure that they can get the outcomes that we want for students over time. And over the past 15 to 20 years, there's been 4 approaches developed to try to answer that question. And they do it in a little different way, and they actually give you a little bit different information. And so we were able to implement 3 of those 4, but I want to walk you through all 4 and then kind of talk to you a little bit about the differences there. And then we'll go pretty deep into how we actually implemented them. And so the first approach that we'll talk about is this evidence-based approach. And what we have here is a theory of action that you can go out and look at the best academic research and school reform model research. Take a look at that and build what we call prototype schools and districts in order to think about what is the resources, the types of resources and interventions and programs you need, and then be able to cost that out to say, kind of how would you build a state funding system based on those resources or based on that research. The second approach is very much like the evidence-based approach in that it builds representative or prototype schools and districts. It takes a slightly different lens. It starts with that same research, but it really tries to work through more of a state-specific context. And so we know there are variations in state, both in standards and in student demographics and in how the just general structure of the state is set up. You go to the South and you'll have a handful of countywide districts. You come to a state like Michigan and you have a whole lot, more districts, many smaller districts, more variation in size. And so professional judgment takes that research and then holds a large series of panels of state-specific educators and trying to tailor that information to be specific to in this case, Michigan. We have the successful schools or school districts approach, which is more of a data-driven approach. What it is really trying to understand is what are districts who are currently outperforming other districts, what are they spending on their students at what we call a base level? And so I'm going to talk a lot about base funding and adjustments for special needs students. Base funding is the way I think about it is what does any student need sitting in any school across the state of Michigan as a starting point? And those adjustments really are what do you need to adjust for students with special characteristics? So your special education, your English language learners, your at-risk or economically disadvantaged students. So those are your student adjustments. And then we'll also talk about district adjustments, which can be your cost of living differences and often your size of district differences. And so Successful Schools looks at what's currently being spent only at that base level. And then the last approach, and the one approach we did not use as part of this study, is called the cost function or statistical approach. And it tries to use often school level spending and academic performance data at the student level to really try to understand what might it take to meet different levels of performance. It can absolutely run a very, very fancy regression on what is currently happening, and then it can be used to extrapolate out to what might need to be available to meet higher levels of performance. So the next slide gives you just a background on the 3 approaches we used, what can they give you and what can't they give you. I've gone through most of this, but I think really the important piece here is down at the bottom. The evidence-based and professional judgment approach can give you both the base amount resources that might need to be spent for a student, and then also the adjustments for the student adjustments, and actually in the PJ case also for a lot of for the district size adjustment. Successful Schools can only give you a base, and that is because we're generally looking at absolute overall performance. And so we're looking for your highest performers, and we'll see it here in a minute, many of those districts don't have large numbers of those special needs populations. So they don't have a lot of economically disadvantaged students or EL students. So we tend to only want to look at what they're doing at the base for all kids, because that makes it more comparable and a more useful piece of data. So the overall study, again, a lot of the focus was on adequacy, and we implemented that professional judgment approach, the evidence-based approach, And then we really updated a successful school district approach that our company had done for the state, which I presented to you all a couple years ago. And so we utilized all that information. And then the collaborative knows there's a lot of other things that influence the operations of districts. And this is an operations lens study. And so we took a look at transportation. We dug a little bit into capital. We looked at the geographic cost differences between districts. And then we did a labor market study. So we have all that. We'll talk about the recommendations. A couple key pieces. Again, we're looking at operations for the most part. Most of the information you're going to see here is just about operations. We did not do a full-fledged capital study. That is a study unto itself, and we'll talk about a recommendation there. We also were really focused on districts and brick-and-mortar charters. We did not dive into adult education or virtual online schools. And so everything we have here is kind of within that box of brick and mortar, and it doesn't necessarily go perfectly over to virtual. So with the professional judgment approach, I'm going to try to catch up over here. We are trying to, again, understand both the base, what's needed at a base level, what's needed for student adjustments, and what's needed for district adjustments. And what we do with the professional judgment approach is we try to build a set of representative schools and districts so that panelists from across the state and educators can come to the table, review research, and then really build out elementary schools, and they build out middle schools, and they build out high schools, and then they build out district resources in a Michigan context. And what you'll see is that when you look at all the elementary schools across the state, they're really, though there's a lot of variation, there's really about 2 K-5 sizes, a smaller and a larger. There's more variation in size for middle school. There's more variation in size for high school. And then, of course, districts here vary widely. And so we actually built out everything you're seeing on this slide at a panel level where educators are at the table reviewing research and then talking about, in order to meet Michigan standards, here's the number of teachers I would need. Here's how I would implement them. Here's the type of programs and interventions we're going to use. All of that gets put into a resource basket that's later costed out, but it starts with theory of action with a group of educators, every one of those then reviewed. I talked about this before, and I think it's important. We spent a lot of time thinking about student need differences. And so we have ELL differences, and we examined ELL through WIDA levels. And so this is really, I think you were actually the first state that we've ever done this in. But what we're starting to understand is that much like concentrations of poverty or differences in your special education need, your WIDA levels tell you something about the amount of service that a ELL student might need. And so, your 1-2 students are very different than could be different than your 5-6 students. And so we're trying to understand if there are resources differences in how those students would be served. We looked at 3 levels of poverty, and we looked at, 3 concentrations of poverty, and then 2 levels of poverty. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but we heard quite a bit about poverty being a factor to the point of students having, coming to school really not having a lot of words, not having, the background in reading, and that being different than just someone who happens to be eligible for free reduced price lunch. So we're trying to think through what does it mean for a student who's more highly impacted is really the way we're thinking about it. And knowing that right now we have kind of a binary approach often to how we look at-risk or economically disadvantaged students and thinking a little bit more kind of 3D, a little bit more in depth there. And then in special education, we were thinking of mild, moderate, and severe students. So I'm going to skip the next 2 slides, but, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Silverstein, but Pam has a question.
Good morning. I don't know if I asked this when you presented this before, but I'm looking at the slide that slide. Do we, tell me your thoughts on looking at race. And I'm thinking African Americans, especially African American males, and the type of teachers that seem to work best, that the data shows us works best. Also, what it takes to attract educators into predominant communities of color. So any thoughts on that and why that would be
Yes, a lot of thoughts, and I unfortunately probably very few answers right now, but I would say, so I've been working in school finance now for 20-something years. And I would say trying to understand how race would go into a school finance formula has been very difficult. Because there's not 100% correlation, not that there is even with free reduced price lunch. And so we have tended to try to find proxies such as free reduced price lunch or eligibility for Medicaid or these other things that tend to link to those communities who do have higher African American populations or Hispanic populations, higher minority populations. I would say in the past 2 to 3 years, this conversation is just starting to say we need to have it more explicitly, and we need to understand if there are ways to make those adjustments in formulas. I don't think we've come to an answer yet.
And I'm thinking like looking at expulsion rates and
Yeah.
things like that. And again, what type of educators need to be before these students. But thank you.
No, absolutely. And so I think part of what we're trying to do is have a more student-centric formula that will likely get more dollars into those communities, which what we hope is it really improves conditions of learning to make it both better for students, but also for educators. So we talk a lot, and I'll highlight it here, wraparound services. I mean, that is a piece that we're really trying to make an understanding of, is that part of K-12 funding? Is that we know it's needed, but it's not part of K-12 funding? So if you have a 90% concentration school, we know you need social workers at that school. Probably it's an elementary school or middle school, maybe even a high school. It would be great if it's a community school, which has a whole set of resources that haven't, and probably some medical services or dental services. Those haven't historically been paid for with K-12 dollars. But within our accountability loop, the question becomes, if we're expecting those schools to have the same outcomes of any other school in the state, but we know those things need to come into play in that community to get it, should it or should it not be in the funding formula? And Maryland is spending a lot of time talking and thinking about that as a state, because they really are trying to focus on concentrations of poverty. And at the instructional level, we can't necessarily say there needs to be more dollars instructionally per kid, but we can tell you there absolutely needs to be a lot more dollars in the wraparound services and student support services. So part of this is what's in the pot and what's not in the pot of funding.
And I will say what's most imminent to me is the shortage and the emergencies that we have around professionals that are going into our urban and communities of color and the bleeding off. So what does it take and what does it cost to keep those people, but then also make sure that we have professionals that have a strong back. They're not the new. They're not the newest professionals, but have adequate.
Yeah, I mean, what we see is in the more highly impacted communities, they tend to end up being the training grounds for the less impacted communities. And that, in any other kind of HR system is kind of the opposite direction of how you would set up the system. And so again, having overall additional resources is trying to mitigate that. But I think there are other groups trying to look more at the teacher pipeline generally. So a little bit outside of K-12 operations funding, but how do you get strong links between teacher prep programs and certain communities so that you're actually training within those communities so that as you walk in the door, you're really prepared. And you're also finding folks who are part of, who are part of that community.
Okay, and Nikki?
I just have a couple questions to make sure I'm sort of emphasizing it all. What does it mean to be a successful school district? What is the outcome that you say that you're looking for from everyone?
Yeah, so if you give me about 8 slides, I will
You'll
walk
get there.
through all of that.
One more question. From the evidence-based approach, what type of evidence are you using creates a culture or an improvement in environment to learn?
I have a set of slides on that, so if I don't get
Okay,
there,
we're getting
please stop
it.
me and we will do it. So, okay. You all have a handout with you, and I'm not going to try to switch across, but it talks both about the professional judgment panels and the evidence-based panels. And basically, the biggest point here is there were 266 Michigan educators who were at the table during this process. They came from all over the state. They represented almost 200 LEAs, 46 ISDs. We had 20 professional judgment panels. So we literally start building schools agnostic to what district you're sitting in, agnostic to what your student demographics look like, other than you have 390 students in elementary school. We then have a set of panels who look specifically at your at-risk, your special education, your EL. We then talk about what do you need now that you're pulling these schools into smaller or larger districts? How does that change how you might govern those schools? We had a charter panel specifically to say, okay, schools have been built kind of agnostic of setting. How does that change when you fit into a charter setting? Is there something different there? We had a CFO panel, mostly because I'm a numbers person and I love sitting in the room with CFOs. We had an isolated district panel because we know that there's some real isolation here in the state. And then in the end, we had a statewide panel that comes in and says, okay, let's look at all the information from these 19 other panels. What makes sense to actually, for there to be differences across the state for reasons, and what was just maybe something that, two different panels talked about a little differently, but it should be consistent across the state. And then for evidence-based, which we'll talk about in a minute, there were 4 panels held all across the state to review this research we'll talk about in a minute. So we've talked about most of that. Just really quickly, what the professional judgment panels after those 20 panels highlighted: smaller class size or small class sizes. And I think we just heard about this in the Dearborn presentation: teacher planning, collaboration, and embedded professional development. High levels of student support, and so we're talking about the social emotional supports. Sufficient administration, extended learning opportunities, especially for your at-risk and EL populations, technology-rich environments. We talked about the student services, sufficient nursing support. That came up more often than we probably would have imagined walking in the door. Counselor and career exploration staff, and especially in those more highly impacted communities, ensuring that students have someone there who's really talking about what are the next steps after high school, and preschool for all 3 and 4-year-olds. We then took that and we costed it out. An important piece here, and we'll talk about it again in a minute, but I want to highlight it. Because we are trying to treat all schools, charter or district, the same, our initial costing out puts in 4.6% retirement as the base level, because there is a difference. Some charters do not have the full pension load. And so then when we talk about funding districts, you would have to fund at the 25.56. But if a school was not in the state's pension system, you would fund at the 4.6%. So that's just one way to say fund actual costs into the system. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but what these tables show you is that we have a lot of information across sizes and across differences in student need. So we have 4 district sizes, and we have all those concentrations of poverty and the different level of poverty. We have all those WIDA levels and all those special ed levels. So there was a lot of information that came out of the professional judgment, which allows you to think through how do you build a school finance system to adjust for student and district characteristic differences. Okay, the evidence-based approach. We've already talked about it. The output of the approach is actually very similar to what you would see from the professional judgment, though it has a little less nuance in district sizes and then all the student characteristic variation. But again, the theory of action is that you can build a basket of goods and services through these prototype schools based on the research that's out there nationally, really from that academic research. And so it's talking about what does it take to improve schools and keep schools high performing. And just to bounce to, I think, the question that we had here, where it can, it most highly relies on randomized control trials. But what we also know in education is that there's not a lot of randomized control trials, right? That's a very hard thing to implement. When you think something's working, it's hard to come out and say, hey, we're pretty sure this works, but you set of kids, we're not going to give it to you so that we can prove it works, right? That is a tough thing to do. And so you're also looking at those that have quasi-experimental design, so you use some proximity score matching, some different ways to run something that looks like a randomized control trial, so other peer-reviewed. And then also those school reformed that have been built over time. And so there's different school models that have been built, and so they really dig into all of that research to come up with what is an actual individualized, evidence-based model of resources. And so they build it off of what they call 10 key elements of school improvement. And so when we and working with POA have gone into schools, the things we find common across successful schools is that they spend a lot of time analyzing student data. And not that they spend a lot of time, they believe in analyzing student data. They set high goals for all students across all student populations. They continuously review evidence on good instruction and effective curriculum. They invest in that teacher training, and a lot of that is embedded professional development. They have those extra helps for struggling students. They restructure the school day to provide more effective instructional time. They have strong leaders. They create a professional school culture. Teachers are treated as professionals within their schools. They bring external professional knowledge into the school when it's needed, and they recruit and retain the best talent. So that's the overarching structure that they then review the data and we build an evidence-based model. Here's why I talked about the difference a little bit. Whereas the professional judgment is looking at the current construct in Michigan and trying to build a lot of variation and understand that variation, the evidence base actually builds one model. They build it at about 4,000 students, and they have a 450 student elementary school, a 450 student middle school, and a 600 student high school. So we're looking at it a little differently. Turns out in Michigan, a 4,000 student district is not really, there are a number of those districts. You can pull this into some other states and it can be a little small or it can be a little big, but here it was actually a very good data point right around that kind of large to moderate sized district. So it was a good data point to match up with the professional judgment. I'm going to pop over this a little bit on slide 27. I know I'm going fast, so I apologize, but I want to give time for questions and kind of get through as much of this as we can. We held 4 panels across the state to review that evidence-based model. So again, Picassotte and Associates has reviewed all the data. They've built their model. And then what they do is, and what we did, we took it across the state and said, this is what the national research would say, kind of agnostic of the state you're sitting in. But in Michigan, there are different standards, and there's different students, and there's different contexts. So how, with about 100 educators from across the state, would you adjust this model in order to fit Michigan? And there were some minor adjustments, but there weren't really large adjustments. And what's interesting is if you go back and look at the professional judgment and what came out of that, and what was talked about this table, most of these 10 elements, very much about what was talked about at the table, right? There's some synergy between what educators know works, what the research is saying works, what the panels came up with. In the end, you're coming at this from 2 different directions, but the answers, as you'll see in a minute, are very similar at the resource level. So in the end, and this is just the difference, and I won't highlight the numbers at this point, but whereas the professional judgment tables, we saw a ton of variation across size and all these differences in student characteristics, the evidence base gives us one base, one number for preschools, one number for your poverty or economically disadvantaged, one number for ELL, one number for special ed. And special ed piece here is important. The evidence base really thinks of special education as more of a census approach, that you would fund all students an additional amount in order to fund your mild and moderate special education, and that the state really should be funding all of your severe fully. It shouldn't be on the plate for districts. It just, because it can, the variation doesn't have much to do with districts themselves. It could be you're close to a hospital. It could be, as in a small community, a family moved in, and now you have a very high-cost kid. So it's just a little different way of thinking about special education, and we'll talk about in a minute how we took those 2 approaches and came up with one single recommendation. Successful schools. So back in 2016, I got to come and talk to you all about an approach, a successful school district study we did for the state. Successful school districts, again, is this theory of action that you can go identify districts who are outperforming other districts and look at what they're spending in order to estimate what should be spent at the base level for all kids. The state put out an RFP for that. We did the work, and the state had a relatively specific definition of success at the time. And we worked with that, and we expanded it a little bit. And so this comes back to the question of what does success mean and what did we use? And so the study's standard was this above average. So any district in the state who was performing at above average on the statewide test was deemed to be successful. That was the baseline success criteria in the original study. At the time, I don't believe there was any test in the state that the average that had over 50% of the students at proficient or above. And so we were looking at tests to be above statewide average. I believe in like science and some other areas, like if you had over 30% of your students, you were successful. And so as a study team, we added a couple additional levels of performance. So high absolute performance, and so looking at districts who are actually at least one standard deviation above that average. And so you're really pushing the limit a little bit. Looking at those districts who are high growth. And so districts who might not be meeting the standard, but over time are really showing a trajectory of growing. And then those districts who are doing really well with their special ed, EL, or at-risk populations. So we grew that, and then we ended up using, and we used for this study, kind of a mix of the various approaches. So we said you both had to be at that above average metric set by the state, but you also had to be one of these other three. So you could be absolutely high performing, or you could be above average and growing, or you could be above average and working well with your special education population. So that was our definition, and we were really trying to find those who are really outperforming others. And in the end, that was about 10% of your districts in the state. And so that's on slide 32. One other nuance, because we love nuance and confusion, right? You have a handful, you have about 13 districts in your state that are outliers in their expenditures. They, through the processes and the changes in your school finance formula, spend dramatically more than the other districts in the state. We looked at this successful schools approach, including them and excluding them, because they really are data outliers just as far as that goes. The biggest thing I will highlight here is on the last row. We create something we call a need factor. And so that takes into account your percent of students who are special ed, and your percent of students who are EL, and your percent of students who are at risk or economically disadvantaged. And you can actually kind of drop the 1 here, but what it basically says in the first column, the 58 districts who met this notably successful standard, their need, when you include those areas, is about 22% above a district who somehow, magically had no special ed, at risk, or ELL. But districts who aren't meeting the standard are at 35%. Right, so what we are seeing, and what we know is that special ed tends to be relatively similar across all districts. I mean, there's variation, but it's relatively similar. And that's a big part of what's happening in those meeting districts. So they have very low rates of EL and at-risk populations. So that was a big, that's an aha, right? Yes, you can outperform others, but to do that, it tends to take having less need than other districts. And so that talks a lot about why you create a school finance system that addresses student characteristics, because what districts really need are those additional resources to provide some vertical equity in funding and allow all students to meet those standards. We took the results from that 2016 study, which was actually looking at 2013-14 data. That was just the most recent fiscal data. We then adjusted it for this study with inflation, which was easy because I can multiply any number by 1. Turns out there was no inflation from the feds in those 2 years, and so the number itself stays the same. So that gave us, those three approaches give us the adequacy lens, and we'll talk a little bit about what it told us and how we decided to, what our recommendation was. But quickly, I want to dive into these other studies that we did. The first is transportation, and even in that 2016 study, we made some recommendation around studying transportation more and trying to think through the theory, the way it's implemented here in Michigan, which is there's really a per pupil funding amount for transportation. And so you're really treating all districts and charters the same when it comes to transportation for the most part. And I'm talking regular ed, not special ed transportation. What we know about transportation is that, and I'm going to move through a couple of these slides and just kind of get to our recommendation. What we know, what we know about transportation is that the characteristics of your district geographically are far more impactful on what your cost of transportation will be than the number of kids you have. And so we'll dig more deeply into this in the recommendation, but simply providing the same dollars for everyone is not taking into account the differences in what it costs to actually provide transportation. We did take a look at the 409 report for districts and charter schools separately. So we looked at transportation for 500 districts and 41 charters. There are some districts who report basically zero transportation dollars, so that's another highlight here. They effectively, within the system, we're funding transportation, but there are some districts who don't need to provide transportation due to how they geographically are set up. So they have dollars. So you have some districts who are spending money on transportation from the same pot and others who don't have to. And so there's just that base inequity in how that's looking there. What came out is there is a large variation in the miles driven per rider and the cost per rider, right? That again has a lot to do with if you have low density, if you have a lot of land, very few kids, it costs a lot to get each kid to school. If you have your kids right by your schools, I live next to a community in the Denver area who built every elementary school so that it was a walking distance boundary. They should have zero transportation costs for elementary kids. That was their goal, right? They can do that because they're an urban setting. You can go to other places in Colorado who have 10 students and it's a massive countywide district, right? It's going to cost a little bit more to get their kids there. You have similar circumstances here. So in the end, districts spent on average $973 per rider. Now, of course, not all kids actually ride the bus, but that's per student riding the bus. Charters spent almost $1,500 per student, but in the end, there's not a lot of charter data, so that is not perfect, but those charters who do transport spend quite a bit, and again, districts spend almost $1,000 per student that they actually drive to school based on the 409 report. It's also important to remember that within transportation, if you add things like extended day programs, if you add preschool, you need to think about that there's also additional transportation costs. If you're going to have some students staying 2 hours after and some leaving right after school, in order for families generally to access those types of additional programs, they need transportation or else they can't get their kids there. For capital, again, I mentioned this earlier, we did not look at what does every district need as far as actual capital needs and how much they need for building. But what we do know is that there is high variation in what's available right now across districts and their capacity to fund capital. So again, we think it's something that should be looked into deeper. As far as within a adequacy lens, we talk about smaller class sizes. Well, not every district has enough classrooms to go to smaller class sizes. So you have to think about if you were to provide additional funding, and that's one of the goals, does that have a capital impact? We talk a lot about needing more support staff. We need to think through, do they need offices? Would they need space to serve? So there can be capital implications to providing more folks in schools. And the extended day and the preschool, all of those can have impacts. Extended day and year, we hear a lot, especially with extended year. It just, if you have kids, if you have a building being used all summer or later in the day, it can impact when you can take care of that building, right? That general upkeep that you're doing over time, it's harder when buildings are actually being used at a higher capacity. And so you just have to think through how does that work. One of those district characteristic adjustments that we wanted to talk about is geographic cost. So we already talked about you can't control for the characteristics of the student body, you can't control for your district size, you also can't control for a district's location. And so that could either be isolation or geographic cost differences. The academic research across the country has really kind of narrowed it down into 3 different ways to think about adjusting for costs across districts. One is really a housing-based cost of living adjustment, so probably more what you think about when you talk about this nationally, right? You take that basket of goods and services and what does it cost in one community versus another. Folks really started with that in a lot of states. There's only about now 10 states who actually make this type of adjustment. But what is clear is that in education, about 80 or more % of your costs are actually people. You're not buying as many cars or things like that. You're really buying people. And so the last 2 types of adjustments, the comparable wage index and the hedonic wage index, are more focused on the cost of labor and the differences in costs of labor across districts. We as a study group, and I would actually say generally the school finance field, are really pushing to this thing called comparable wage index. So it uses the American Community Survey and some other national databases that are updated yearly, right? So you have data that always exists. And really what it's trying to do is take the pay for teachers and educators specifically out of the equation and say, districts make their own decisions about how much they pay. And so we should not think that is actually the indicator of differences in cost. That can be in a whole host of reasons. They might have higher class sizes, so they pay their teachers more. I mean, there's different reasons they do that. And what Comparable Wage Index does is it tries to take a selection of similar professions as the basket of goods and say, okay, in Detroit, it costs this much on average to pay, let's say, accountants. But if I go to Grand Rapids, it costs 82% or it costs 105%. And because the education background of those groups of professions are similar to educators, we can assume that that's the real cost difference of labor between those two communities. And so what it's trying to do, again, is get rid of anything that is controlled by districts, but use nationally recognizable data to say what's really the attraction cost district to district by using that. And so there are some limitations because some of the data sets would include 5, 10, 15 districts. As you get more districts in a state that are smaller, you get a little less specificity, but you can also do this over time in a little bit more specific way to the state. But that's what we would recommend here in Michigan. We did a labor market analysis, and this is going to shock everyone. Teachers are paid less than other folks with similar education backgrounds. So we proved a point that everybody knew, so thank you. But what is interesting is that in Michigan and other states in the region, that gap is actually a little smaller than what you see nationally. So that's a positive. You are actually a little closer within that pay gap than what we see in a lot nationally, and that's true kind of throughout this region. Okay, I promised to go 40 minutes, so I have 50 seconds to get through the next 10 slides. But results and recommendations. In the end, the underlying principle of what we're recommending is really shifting to a student-centric system that then also adjusts for district characteristics. So we really want to be thinking about how do we target differences in districts that they do not control. And so to do that, we're talking about, a base cost for all kids. And when we do that on slide 57, you'll see that the successful schools spend quite a bit less per pupil than what we found through professional judgment or evidence base. And if we go way back to one of those very first slides, the way we would talk about that is the outcomes that we were seeing for those schools were dramatically lower than where we think Michigan is going and what it wants from all students. And so we think the professional judgment and the evidence base really are a better lens to where you want kids to be versus where you were at the time we were doing that successful schools. Now, the professional judgment and evidence base also have a difference. And so we had to dig into that. And in the end, that difference is almost wholly accounted for that the evidence base recommends class sizes of 15 to 1, class sizes of 15 to 1 K through 3. The panels from around the state actually said they thought at the base level, you could do that at 20 to 1, right? So they were more conservative in their approach. And so we, as a study team, recommend using that professional judgment approach. But if you were to ever get there and implement it, if 4 or 5 years in, you're still seeing those real reading problems, especially at 3rd grade, then you have something to fall back on to say, well, okay, the national research says, well, maybe we didn't put it quite enough at those lower grades. But we would recommend going with the more conservative number coming out of the professional judgment. We would recommend that all poverty students receive an additional funding amount of 35% on top of that base. We think this high-need poverty concept is really something that's got to be stepped through and that we're really trying to dig deeper into, but we were uncomfortable making a recommendation after one time looking at it. But again, we do think it's something that would be important to think through, and that's especially on those higher concentration schools. We, again, think over time moving towards a WIDA-based funding system, and so you have a test that's directly tied to how you identify kids, right? You then, for your highest impacted kids, those 1s and 2s, you have higher funding than you do for your 5, 6, and FELs. And then for special ed, we would recommend, again, a tiered system. So your mild special education students, so that's a lot of your speech, your learning disability would be a 0.7, your 1.15 for moderate, and then for your very highest cost students, that would really just be a state-funded system. So that's the recommendation. And then we absolutely think there should be an adjustment for district size, and we've actually produced some information on that. And both approaches say that if you're going to go fund preschool, and both approaches would recommend funding preschool, that it's, versus that $9,500, it's, about $4,500 more per student because you have very small class sizes. You need 2 adults in every classroom. There's just some people costs there that you don't face in the higher grades. And then, you currently have an adjustment for isolation, but it's really focused on the UP, and we think there are a handful of districts who could actually be included in that definition that aren't UP districts. It's a small adjustment, but there are some additional costs to being isolated. And those are really more on the operating side and finding and attracting certain type of staff. It just can be really hard to get, especially those related services folks, into a system. So, second recommendation is the base cost and special needs adjustment should be funded at the same level for districts and brick and mortar charters. So again, everything we've shown you is at that lower retirement rate. We'll talk about that on the next slide. But what we're saying is, students are students. Wherever they're going, fund actual costs. And so that's really a key piece there. 3, for those systems that are not in the in the state retirement system, they would receive funding at that 4.6, which is all the numbers you've seen from all the districts, and some charters you would need to fund additionally to capture those additional retirement costs. So that's very important. I've already said this one. I kind of got a little fast here, which was transportation should be funded outside the base per student amount, and you should design a system that is related to the characteristics of districts. And so different states do this differently. There are 5 or 6 approaches that are actually in this presentation and really have a lot of detail in the report. But again, it's more about your density. It's more about the linear miles you're driving. It's far less about just a per pupil amount. The state should undertake a full capital study. These districts have really highly varied capacity to build new buildings. And then charters, when we're talking about funding actual costs, one of the differences between charter sector and the traditional sector is availability of funding for capital. And so there really should be some look into what is the ongoing cost of capital for charters also. Already mentioned the CWI, and then in the end, we also looked at CTE. And so for those funded students in CTE programs, we think there's about a 10% additional cost to have a really robust CTE program. All right. So I'm a couple minutes over. I appreciate you guys being patient, and I know it went through way too much, so please fire off questions and. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and now we'll open it up to comments and questions from board members. Cassandra.
So I really appreciate all the work that you guys have put into this, and it's definitely a comprehensive report. I have 2 specific questions. One I think might be the easier question. On the slide you talk about facilities for charter schools, are you making a distinction between those charter school facilities that are publicly owned versus those that are privately owned? Because the ones that are privately owned, they pay a lot to lease themselves their own buildings, and I would have a real concern if we were just giving them more money so that they could pocket in a larger lease.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple ways to look at this. The first being, in any kind of funding system, you want to talk about what is the average cost to get something done. And so that's what you would fund. If then a charter school decides that they're going to pay a higher percentage of their total funding to capital, that's their decision. But what you aren't trying to do is fund actual costs that are not contained by some system. So really what you're trying to say is, if for maintenance and upkeep and other things, districts don't have, because they can fund buildings with capital, they aren't taking their operating dollars to pay for facility, for that part of the facility cost. Kind of what would be as close to like an apples to oranges comparison that you could have between those 2 sectors, and we don't have the answer to say this could be what's needed. In DC, they provide a couple $1,000 more to their charters for kind of some facility needs, but it's equal, right? So every charter kid's getting the same amount. then it's up to the charter itself to decide how much of that they would be spending on that.
Yeah, but when you're the management company that controls the budget and you are the owner of the building, then that's a decision I think we're probably going to see, let's spend more on our building.
Yeah, and that I think you all have a unique concentration of private charters in your state. And so it's even hard to look at some of the other charter research. For full disclosure, I'm on a charter board in Denver. There are no private charters in Denver, so it's just a very different lens.
Second question, all of this is still based on a per pupil model.
Yes.
And in Michigan, we've seen about a loss of about 200,000 students over the last 15 years. And we have, this robust choice and charter, which has led to complete instability from district to district and really some financial issues across the board. Does your study take into account the unstable platform in which our schools are operating from year to year with student enrollment?
Probably not as explicitly as it could, and I think there's a good research out there that we could bring back to you all if you need it, and we've talked a lot about it with even the collaborative. We would always recommend some sort of declining enrollment adjustment. So what you don't want to have is these cliffs for districts who, we lost, any district, but especially in small districts, we lose 10 students, and if we lose 10 students, that kind of blows everything up. So a lot of states use, 3 to 5 year rolling averages on the way down. Some states use it on the way up. That's less frequent, but definitely on the way down. There is more and more research out there about kind of what the loss is as students move from sector to sector, if you will, so going from traditional to charter or back, right? I mean, it can go in a lot of directions. And so having some smoothing effects can be really helpful in any formula. And I think if you have a lot of flow, then it's really important to think about how do you create smoothing. The thing we never want to happen, and we've talked to this about with the collaborative, no cliffs, right? We don't want anywhere in any of the system there to be a cliff where if you get a kid or you lose a kid, there's a big change. And the reality is that decline can create kind of implicit cliffs, and so you definitely want to smooth out as you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pam and then Michelle.
Yeah, and mine is really just piggybacking on what Cassandra just said and then my earlier questions, because when I look at your slides on page 11 or the slide number 11 maybe, 11, and then slide number 27, and looking at the groups that you've talked to, to me it seems as if you've kind of like alienated some of those school districts, and as I was mentioning, some of the mainly urban, a lot of the African American and Latino school districts where there is that turbulence. There's no time to plan for transportation. Usually if a school is closing and students need to be bused all the way across town, I'm assuming that when you're looking at like the transportation cost, it's going to be a difference because you don't have planning, or when you have teachers that are walking out and you don't know into the beginning of the school year, and you have to quickly come up with the cost to address that. And so I definitely appreciate the study, and it definitely puts us on a good path and trajectory of knowing what our districts and students really need. But when I look at your, some of the school districts that were left out, and then some of the locations that could perhaps have been left out as we talk about some of these nuances. Just hoping that we get that, because there may be something that, like you said, totally blows up your formula.
Yeah, and so a couple things. One, we're never going to have perfect representation, but with that high poverty focus, we definitely had we had Detroit at the table. We had, and I don't memorize but we tried at every panel, especially to have more highly impacted districts. When we were doing EL, we had folks from Dearborn and others who have high concentrations and really know what's going on. And the goal was to have those folks who both represented that community and were showing real effectiveness within. And so it definitely isn't perfect. And then additionally, as a state, and thinking through the governor's office sitting here, you have to define a system that funds all as best you can, but it doesn't mean that you could probably ever get away from what we would call, small categorical programs for certain things that it isn't every district, right? You can't, it wouldn't go into a system well, but to your point, having additional funding that was really targeted for very specific purposes, be it having, better representation of teachers within certain communities, like, that's not something I think anyone would ever say don't do, but we want the bulk of the dollars to be what we really think of as transparent and predictable. Right, because what is also helpful for districts, and I think this really goes back to the point of having those flow pieces so you don't have drops, is that you want to know next year, I can really predict what's going to come to my district, because that's really tough for districts if you don't have something that's transparent and predictable.
Okay, thank you. And then to Michelle, and then to Nikki.
Hi, thank you for this, and your work, David Arson's work, the people who worked on the adequate study before, I think, I just wish it would have more weight politically. It just seems like I think we all, anybody who's in education or at that level, a parent, knows that the needs are great, especially if you have a special ed kid, and how desperate things are. And if you're in an urban or a district where there are all those issues of poverty or, a plethora of charter schools, and that instability, it's really, it's been a trip. So, so my questions are, there are two. I'll give you more the easier one first, I think. So, so one of the things I see in these studies, what they don't seem to mess, they look at the charter schools do get like a sort of a standard amount of money, which I believe includes money that's for MEPSers, even though the for-profits I don't think are eligible to engage into to have MEPSers. So they're getting money for the pension plan that they shouldn't get. It would be nice if they did provide a pension though, but and there's also a lot of private money be given because of the Community Renewal Tax Relief Act of 2000, where hedge fund managers and banks include charter schools in their portfolios, and private funding is available, which they can, it's because it's very lucrative, because they shortchange in other areas to make a profit. So I think, and I know that's sort of a hot potato, but it's reality that there's this other funding model, and that has been renewed every year. And again, with this new tax codes that have come out, even though it was initially not in there, the hedge fund managers made sure it got back in. So I think that has to be considered, and or at least if it's going to be. I mean, it would be great if they would just get rid of that tax credit. Because it attracts the charter schools to the high poverty areas, because they get the tax credit if they live in high poverty, if they locate in high poverty areas, which is where they need more stability. And so systematically, or, it just creates instability where we need it the least. I mean, where it's really does a lot of damage. So has that been considered, these private funding models that, and the profits that are gleaned from it?
So I think the explicit piece was in this recommendation 3, and it came up early on, and we spent a lot of time, and maybe, Steve is here who's better at your finance system, but we are clearly not, we made a recommendation that you fund actual costs. So if you are a charter who is not part of the pension system, you would not receive funding that includes dollars for the pension system. And so all of our numbers are at this 4.6%, because that's really what, in looking at the charter community, that was kind of the average cost for retirement for them. The state's cost is 25, if you're in the system, it's 25.56 at the time, and that could, those can move a little bit.
If you look at the recommendations, I'm sorry, I was on the steering.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, join us, Steve.
The actual recommendation.
Steve, could you introduce yourself?
I'm sorry,
please?
Steve Zekian, Deputy Superintendent Wayne Reese, and I was on the steering committee for the Research Collaborative. If you look at the actual recommendation, the base cost amount that's recommended only includes 4.6 for pension cost across the board for everybody. It also recommends for schools that participate in the state retirement system, there's an additional amount of funding provided. The 4.6 happened to be the normal pension cost in the state retirement system, but it also mirrored what the non-participating employers were contributing towards retirement plans for their employees. So it was evened out there. I also wanted to mention, in slide 27, you saw some districts, some locations named. Those were locations of where the meetings were held, not the districts that participated in the evidence-based panels. So the participation was very broad and very diverse across the state. Those 4 cities were just where those meetings were
I
held.
brought that up, so people like up in Saginaw and Flint, in those areas, they got to.
Right.
So my other question is, other states that have this differentiated funding model and, or weighted funding, how did they get it politically to actually come to fruition? I mean, it is another cost, but I mean, I think it's a worthwhile cost if we care about education. And I'm just wondering if there's any insight on a path forward politically to actually not just have this sit on a shelf somewhere, to actually have it have some impact, and any ideas that you might have.
So it's a wide variation. Some states have done this just for a really long time, right? So they've had weighted systems for 40 years. I think there is a movement nationally for those states who don't have this to go towards it. And the reality is, right, it politically generally takes some new dollars, right? It's much easier to implement this when there's some new dollars on the table, so you don't have a lot of losers. It doesn't have to be a lot. So there's different ways to get that done. This will tell you a lot about me. Spent about an hour on the phone Sunday morning with a colleague, and we were discussing just this, which is like, what is the nexus that happens in any state where you see the sudden change? And I would say the collaborative has done a lot of that legwork in that, people around the state really understand why we're doing this, what it means. There's been a lot of just education. Like a lot of times studies like this come out and they just drop and there's not that background education. But in the end, I think what has to happen is folks need to feel like whatever dollars we're putting out there need to be in a more equitable manner. And a student-weighted formula provides you a very transparent way to have that equity going towards that adequacy. And because what you know is every new dollar into the system, some of that's going to go to your highest need students through the poverty or economically disadvantaged, and some of that's going to go to special education students, and some of that's going to go to your EL students, versus when you have pots of dollars, people make decisions about kind of what's most important at the moment. And sometimes, 10 years out, that can be really hard to get back to your baseline of, oh, wait, we actually know the relative difference in cost, and if we're going to put dollars in, let's put the dollars in through that system. So states like California made this change recently. Nevada's looking at doing it currently in their funding system. Mississippi. I mean, states are going towards the idea, and that's why I keep coming back to, it's a student, it's about kids, right? In the end, you're going towards a student-centric system that allows you to know when we put dollars into the system, people can predict where they're going, and where they're going is about kids and the differences in serving kids.
The collaborative purposely was engaged not to be partisan and political about the process. They wanted to do the work of the study and be objective about that. I do know that there is another group, the Public Engagement Committee, that's now taken the work of the study and saying, hey, what do we do with this? And working with the legislature and working with the governor's office on what this means. If you look at the study that Michigan State did, their study is pretty similar in terms of costs involved, and they came up with, we're spending $14 billion currently in the state on education. Their study came up with, I think, 22 or 23 billion was the total cost. And it's probably not dissimilar to what the SFRC study is. So you've got that gap that needs to be made up. I've not heard a lot of issues around differentiating cost. I think people understand some of the things that the study explained in terms of those special groups and special situations. I think the issue is how do we get to that additional $7 billion?
Thank you, Michelle. And now Nikki.
I was just curious, because I noticed there's those 10 key elements associated with the evidence-based approach that that the base number that you suggest rests on. I don't see that for successful school districts. Was there really 10 key elements that you could say, this is what works for these school districts and why they have an outcome at this base cost?
So that is really the interesting piece between the professional judgment and evidence base, and then really the cost function and the successful school districts. Successful school districts and cost function are very data-driven, and it's nearly impossible to understand the why. You can just understand the what, right? This is what folks spent to get that outcome, but within this model, without really detailed case studies of every district, you don't know exactly why they did it. What has been true is folks have, and folks being us, have taken some of those successful schools in other states and visited them, and it turns out within those case studies, they're doing very much this set of 10 pieces, but I couldn't tell you for all 58 districts what they do, and likely they do different things.
Successful schools are doing that with less money.
We don't know if they're doing all of it. We also know they're not getting to the same outcomes, right? They again, we're at over 30% or over 40%. They weren't at the higher levels. We don't know exactly what they're doing. We know what they spent. That's why the professional judgment and the evidence base are more along the lines of kind of outward-looking, forward-looking of this is what we know from research, this is what we know from educators. If we want to grow our outcomes and grow where we're going, these are the type of things we'll have to do. And so it could be also that they're doing similar things, but one's kind of on steroids versus the other, right? They're trying to do extended day, in evidence-based, we'd be trying to do extended year for certain kids. And yeah, I can't tell you what the 58 do, that's just not part of that approach.
Thank you, Nikki. Are there any other questions or comments from board members?
Just a comment.
Yes, Lupe.
I like the fact that you also emphasize that children first, students first. So we keep that in the forefront. Everything we do, we're going to be going the right direction. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for your presentation explaining the design of the School Finance Research Collaborative Study in terms that sitting around the table, we could all understand. So we appreciate that. Thank you. And the next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is the presentation of social studies standards. In 2018, the social studies standards were presented to the State Board of Education, and following that presentation, the Michigan Department of Education staff held 18 listen and learn sessions throughout the state and provided an online survey for public comment. There were nearly 5,000 responses to the draft standards. Department staff and social studies experts from across the state have worked to revise these standards based on the feedback. Staff is here today to share the updated draft social studies standards. And following today's presentation, there'll be another period of public comment, including an online survey and more listen and learn sessions. So our presenters today are Vanessa Kiesler, Linda Forward, and Jim Cameron. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you, Superintendent Ellis, and we're letting all of our guests and collaborators on this important effort file in, and we welcome them all. We're very glad that they are here to join us for this presentation. It is our great pleasure to bring you the social studies standards. It has been an extensive multi-year effort, and we're going to talk about some of what's gone into it, so we're excited to be here today. I'd like to cover a couple things to start off. We're going to start here. Standards are not about politics. And I know the New York Times article that came out about our process did a good job of talking about some of the ways that people have tried to make standards about politics, but the MDE's commitment is that that's not what this is about. It is about the process and skills, the standards, and it's about what the student, I'm going to quote the student from the article, teach us about everything, the good and the bad, so we can learn to think for ourselves. Standards are about providing, to point to, a framework to help students develop a sense of inquiry, the ability to interact with difficult material, and to make decisions on their own, be good critical thinkers, and be good citizens in society. That's what we need. So we are going to, and we invite you to join us in our endeavor to make these standards not about politics and make them about helping Michigan students have access to the right kind of social studies framework to be what we want them to be in terms of citizens in the future. So they are, back one more time, sorry, Linda. So they are a framework. Think critically, make decisions. I also want to reemphasize the standards are not curriculum, nor are they a script. So they are not something that teachers read from and they cite these 5 things. They are not the detailed curriculum. We respect the professionalism of educators to know how to implement these standards, our teachers, and we respect the local district decisions around curriculum. So just to be clear, standards are at a higher level than either curriculum or the day-to-day teaching that happens, the enactment of that curriculum. And the final bullet is extremely important as well. We need our students to see themselves in these standards. That's important from an equity perspective. And I think that one of the tensions in the standards redo is appropriately these standards make more room for the perspectives that have been involved all along but maybe have not been explicitly taught or named or recognized. And that is really important as we move forward as a country and as a state, that we have that equity lens on this work. Talk a little bit about our journey. It is a long one and a good one. Volunteers from around the state have helped us think about what these standards might look like. So as much as Jim and Linda could write standards, they aren't the ones who write the standards. They facilitate a multidimensional, multi-perspective process to get us to these standards. Up until this point, we have more than 360 volunteers involved in this process, 360 experts, and we look forward to honoring their contribution to this work today. And they do represent, and very intentionally represent, diversity geographically, culturally, ethnically, racially, and religiously. That's important, again, to help us get to standards that are inclusive, that help students see themselves in the standards, and that are not biased in any way. I wanted to quantify this. I asked the team to pull this together so that we could take a look just at how many hours and people have been involved. So it totals to over 30,000 hours of work. 15 social studies leaders, these different groups. I'm going to go through them in greater detail, but if you look down, over 30,000 hours of work, responses numbering into the tens of thousands. So feedback and discussion and hours, not only from the team here, in fact, although again, Jim and Linda have spent a good chunk of that 30,000 hours themselves, much of those hours is taken by all of these collaborators you see around the room, and not in this room today. Let me just walk you through where we were. In 2007, the State Board approved our previous social studies standards. In 2014, I somewhat ambitiously said, yes, let's redo the social studies standards while we're in the process of doing science before Mike Flanagan leaves. We should be able to get this done in a year. No problemo, right, Linda? Linda said, what a great idea. I don't think that's exactly what she said, but she was on board. That did not take only a year. So we began in 2015 with a review of the standards, and I'm going to let Jim and Linda talk a little bit more about some of the details there, but looking at the C3 framework, looking at some of the things we wanted to make better. But we looked at this at that point as an update. We had the focus group come together for 6 full days in reviewing draft number 8. This was after Superintendent Wiston came here. And then we incorporated those changes from that focus group into the draft we brought forward in March. Again, with the New York Times article and some of you guys were here for this, this was the draft that incorporated those suggestions that came from, the focus group included Colbeck and some of those other members named in the New York Times article. So just to help you guys track what happened where. So the draft that came forward in March had some of those additions and deletions, and then that is what went back out for those 18 listen and learn sessions that Linda and Jim conducted around the state. And we're going to go through what we learned from those listen and learn sessions. But again, over 5,000 responses to that March 18 draft. Following all of those listen and learn sessions, we convened the task force. And the task force members, thinking back to the slide with how many, there were 120 task force members total. They've put in over 2,500 hours. There were 6 subcommittees that worked on the different components of the standards. And then they met to revise through October, December. And then we held the work sessions. So this is where we brought in additional community members, additional work groups, and like I said, there's some more detail on this going forward. But involved more voices in looking at these standards. So we bring them to you today, and then they go out for public comment. We have 9 additional listen and learn sessions and another online survey, and we look forward to bringing them back to you hopefully in June.
Why update Michigan social studies standards? This is a slide that has appeared in several presentations, but I want to go through that with you, that the standards, as Vanessa said, were last updated in 2007. It was time we do this periodically. The C3 framework was released, and we'll talk more about that. The C3 framework was created under the auspices of the National Council for Social Studies, and looks like this. Many of you have seen this before. And we can get you copies if you don't have one. The standards to reflect deeper student learning, that's always a goal, to continue to make them more rigorous. Feedback from the field said fewer, clearer, and higher. We've done presentations at the Michigan Council for the Social Studies Conference and other places, and that's the feedback that we got. This definitely needs work. More integration of content, not just the 4 core within social studies, but math, science, ELA, very important, and then to increase student outcomes. You will see examples in the following slide. The graphic on the right, the basis is the content, the history, civics, geography, and economics, that there is certain content that students need to know and be able to work with. But the pillars are important as well. The disciplinary knowledge, the thinking skills, to understand what democratic values are and how those fit in. And then civic participation is very important. And all of these leading to being responsible citizens. So how are the standards set up? This is taken directly from a screenshot from page 2. The highlights are added for the purpose of this slide. But we have a K2, a 3.5, and a 6.8 overview for these grade bands. Then more specifically, World History and Geography grade 7, Integrated U.S. History grade 8, and then at the high school level, the World History, United States History and Geography, Civics, and Economics. So that's how they're organized when you go through these. So how do the standards play out? We talked about the arc of inquiry. The arc of inquiry, again, is in the C3 framework created by representatives, volunteers from 25 or 26 states. I served on that group. And the arc of inquiry, the C3 framework, is just that. It's a framework. It's not a set of standards. We are not here to adopt the C3 framework as our standards. It is a framework that we use. It's more a methodology than content. And so we will see more about the arc of inquiry right now. This also is taken directly from the standards that we imported, the C3 framework arc of inquiry. And the purpose of the C3 listed in the document is to re-envision the purpose and instructional practices of social studies. And there are 4 dimensions to the arc of inquiry. The first one, developing questions and planning inquiries. And the idea is to have a compelling question, to challenge students to think about various answers, various resources. That's followed by supporting questions. So if we took something very simple, like, is our government a democracy or a republic? That could be the compelling question. And I know from experiences, there are a lot of different views about which we are. But that's just a very simple one. And then from there, we would need to ask supporting questions that, what is democracy? What is a republic? What are some of the other options that we might be dealing with? And then the teacher would help the students plan this inquiry to find the answer. Dimension 2, applying disciplinary concepts and tools. This is where we go out and have the students find various resources, look at the content standards, not just social studies, but perhaps others, and explore those concepts and tools. Dimension 3, evaluating sources and using evidence. that we don't allow our students to just cite one source, to go at Wikipedia and say, I have the answer. That they need to check multiple sources, and then they need to evaluate those sources. Very, very important there. So use evidence once they have answered or come up with their answer to that question. And then dimension 4, and I think at least for my age group, and there aren't too many of you here, but even maybe your age group, the dimension 4 is something I never had. Communicating conclusions and taking informed action. When I was in high school and took U.S. history, we saw the movie, we took notes on the lecture, didn't have PowerPoints back then, but then Friday we had the test and Monday we started something else. But what about? We didn't do what about, and it's important in this 21st century that we allow our students to communicate conclusions and take informed action. What action? Well, that's up to them depending on how they came up with these their answers. So the C3 provides a lens for reviewing Michigan social studies content standards. On this slide, we have two things that I want to point out. First, the structure of the standard. This is taken directly from the 2019 version. So the standard here is for Civics 1.1.3. Compare, contrast, and evaluate models of representation in democratic governments, including presidential and parliamentary systems. That is the standard. The examples may include but are not limited to. And so make sure you read that carefully. May include. Oh, well, this is prescriptive. You need to do this. No, it's teacher discretion, it's district discretion, it's school discretion. They may use any or all of those, but they are not limited to those. Well, I think it should be this. Okay, then put that in your example for your classroom, for your school, for your district. And then the bottom part, the arc of inquiry, a compelling question. I was a little too simple before, but it was necessary for the explanation. A compelling question, and this also is an example in the standards. In what ways might the federal and state governments reflect characteristics of both direct democracy and a representative republic, or neither? What might be the best forms of representation? So we are not telling them what is the best form. We are allowing students to explore those possibilities and then come back for discussion. Some changes from the 2015, just to review them for those of you that might not have been here. Major changes in 6th and 7th grade, 6th grade world geography, 7th grade world history. We felt that those were very redundant, that we were repeating some of the same standards, just changing a little bit of content here or there. And that's been on the table for quite a while. Several schools have already made this change, and so it's for a lot of schools, it's a done deal. As far as organization changes and rationale, in world history, we decided to move Era 4 to the middle school to provide high schools a chance for more rigor and more depth. As a former U.S. history teacher, I could never figure out how world history teachers could teach all of world history in a semester or a year. So that was moved to the middle school. We moved Era 6 from the middle school to the high school. That Era 6, industrialization and so forth, sets the stage for so much of the 20th century and 21st century that we felt it was very important to keep that more closely tied to more current U.S. history. And then changes in the processes and skills sections, you've seen that as far as the arc of inquiry. Since 2007, better methods have been developed. We need to include those. Changes to format, the appendix is eliminated. It makes them more accessible, that if you have to flip back and forth from the standard on page 10 to the examples on page 110, it makes it very difficult. So they're more accessible. And then the examples were, instead of putting them in the body of the standards, they were put in that examples are, may include, but not exclusive to. And again, it encourages teachers to add their own examples that would be more appropriate for their students. MDE decided that going into the review process after 2018, that we would hire public policy associates, and Dan Quinn is here. Dan? That we wanted an outside expert or an outside group to handle these things so that we could properly gather and interpret the feedback that we were about to reach. So the public reaction per public policy associates, Vanessa mentioned that we had the listen and learn sessions, 18 around the state, 2 in the UP. We had the online feedback, and we got lots of feedback. Some general comments. Overall public reaction to the proposed 2018 standards were overwhelmingly in opposition. There were concerns about the revision process. There were concerns about moving or removing certain term states or people mentioned. And attendees were critical of the process used to draft the standards, as well as concerned about the makeup of the focus groups. More feedback from PPA. Again, the elimination of references in content, changes in vocabulary, the lack of transparency in the review process, political influence, lack of a rationale. I think many of these concerns were well-founded. Again, our first attempt was a one-year plan to get her done, and it got bogged down. I feel we've addressed all of these concerns. Content area feedback. First of all, civics and core values. You can probably identify the 2 chairs of the civics core values team. They have more scars than the other people that are here. But there were quite a few concerns here. Disagreement with the new terminology in civics, the concern about Republican democracy. As mentioned in the New York Times article, the teacher pictured there was upset with core democratic values becoming core values, and that was from a lot of the feedback that we received. And then there was concern about the removal of terms like truth, diversity, and justice. K4 changes weren't nearly as many, and we did make some tweaks there, some changes based on the feedback, but not as much there. 6th and 7th grade, the primary concern was the shift to world history at one grade level and world geography at another, but again, that's been on the table for a while. A lot of schools have already taken care of that, so we're in good shape there. 5th and 8th grade plus high school U.S. history, that moving or removing specific examples was a major concern for people. There wasn't always agreement on which ones should be included and which ones shouldn't, but there was a concern about examples. Economics, there were considerably fewer comments. Again, we made some tweaks, but not a whole lot there. These next examples, I apologize, they're hard to read, but the purpose is not to read them word for word. The purpose is to see how we proceeded, that after the 2018 board meeting, realizing we needed to have rationales, we needed to be more inclusive, we did that. And there's the 2000 version, there's the revised or current draft suggestion, and then the key here is the example to the right under the task force, that the economics task force believed that adding examples narrows the potential. The K4 task force hoped to see examples whenever possible. Point being that even though we had these 5 different content area groups, they did communicate that K4 is history, econ, civics, geography. Well, do they do the econ or does the econ committee do it? And the answer is they both do, and then they communicate. Here is an example of exactly that they shared what they were working on, compared their answers, and went from there. So there was a lot of compromise. It wasn't completely in silos. They did communicate.
And just to signpost back to because there were a number of groups, so to help you track on your timeline where we're at. This is beginning in 2018, we say the task force members, so the 120 members who served on that in the subcommittees, that was their feedback to the listen and learn, the work that was done after the listen and learn sessions by that task force. So if you're following back on your timeline, we're at about October 2018.
Good. And the format of the 5 examples we're going to see here, they look different, that we allowed each of the chairs, co-chairs of the 5 content groups to identify whatever worked best for their group. So here again, the column, the 2007 standard, the revised or current draft. The task force had input with the K4 group. They also were very concerned about bias on this particular standard. The Bias Review Committee did not weigh in. And then the final draft on the lower right-hand side is where we ended up. But again, a lot of conversation, a lot of rationale, and multiple rationales if you look under the task force column.
I know we want to keep moving, but the slide 23, the one before that. So I see black, I see red, I see blue. I'm assuming red and black are the two. Red and blue are 2 inputs. The black is.
Okay. The K4 group wanted to add in examples. That's the black comment.
Oh, okay.
The comment in black. The economics task force responded saying, nope.
Okay.
And then the K4 said, well, okay, but we hope to see more examples. So it was a dialogue, but a rationale so that you could see that there was discussion going on.
So then in 24, that's where you show us where the final, where the conversation landed. In slide 24.
Slide 24 is a different example.
Right, but I'm just saying, but when we look at this and we look at the side by side, we'll see that for these different discussions, we'll see a final column that shows where these discussions landed between the task forces and the bias group. Okay.
So again, with 24, again, the multiple rationales, if you look under the task force heading. For high school world history and geography, growth and interactions of world religions, the original high school content expectation or standard, the examples that were used. The revision includes adding section on world religions similar to 07 standards, but focusing more on the significance of the interactions between the religions, and then a more extensive rationale for why they did that. Next example is the high school civics. And again, I apologize for the size of the font, but that's not the purpose. This is a screenshot from their results. And it's more important that you see that the original 2007 standard is there. The 2018 people said delete it. The general feedback from the public review and in-person sessions said it needed to be reinstated. Purpose for changing it back was in keeping the 2018 revision, and then use the examples may include but are not limited to. And the rationale was, again, the feedback. And most of these changes, if not all of them, are a result of the feedback that we gathered from these 18 listen and learn sessions and the over 5,000 comments for feedback that we received. And then an example of high school economics. Again, economics was not approached. There weren't as many complaints, concerns about high school economics. But in this one, there's the 2007 standard. It's still in 2018, similar, but the task force decided that we needed to change it, that the 07 implied a negative connotation for entrepreneurship, and so they wanted to change it to what you see under the 2018 task force. So things were done in econ, but more a minor tweak. Another example of updates, this dealing with climate change. Again, this is a screenshot right from the standards. In 6th grade, G 5.1.1, describe examples of how humans have impacted and are continuing to impact the environment in different places as a consequence of population size, resource use, level of consumption, and technology. So I don't think too many people would argue that human activity has an impact on the climate. It's just to what degree. And so as far as examples may include but are not limited to, down at the very bottom, you can see the reference to climate change. So it is in the examples, it is mentioned, it is something that teachers do talk about. So it is there, but again, if you focus on the standard G 5.1.1, it doesn't say, yes, there is climate change, or no, there isn't climate change, that through the arc of inquiry, the students can do their research and come up with conclusions under the guidance of their teacher.
And if you've read the standards, the geography standard throughout has this just this idea of human interaction with the environment that comes back over and over, and that is on purpose because that is a component of understanding human interaction with the environment, among other things. So this is one place where it's called out, but it's this larger arc of inquiry theme that shows up throughout the standards, the human interaction with the environment specifically.
Another example dealing with gay rights, which is a contentious area and got a lot of feedback, that in Standard 8.3.4, Civil Rights Expanded, evaluate the major accomplishments and setbacks in securing civil rights and liberties for all Americans over the 20th century. So we feel that's a very solid standard. It doesn't seem to show any bias, according to the Bias Review Committee. But again, examples may include, but are not limited to. So Indigenous people, Latinos, Latinas, immigrants, people with disabilities, gay and lesbian community, and then examples of various items that could be included but aren't required to be included. We don't want to be prescriptive or proscriptive.
Question? Wait, I noticed African Americans are not in this grouping. Like everyone else but?
Ruth Ellis is black. May not be the best example,
Yeah,
but again,
okay. Yeah, so, okay.
Christianity versus Islam, again, the screenshot right from the standards, World History Era 4, 4.1.1, growth of interactions of world religions, analyze the significance of the growth of and interactions between the world religions. And then there are a variety of examples that are included there. So I think we've addressed that in through examples and then through the arc of inquiry, the discussions that can result from that would be very significant. Our partners on the journey, a lot of these people that are in the room today, the Department of Education has worked closely with the Michigan Council for Social Studies, a very active group, has been for years. The Michigan Center for Economic Education, Derek D'Angelo was the chair of the Econ Group. The Michigan Social Studies Supervisors Association, the Michigan Center for Civic Education, Michigan Council for History Education, and the Michigan Geographic Alliance. And we at MDE relied on the leaders of these groups not only to lead the task force when they were willing and able, but also to help us recruit people for the various committees so that we had a good representation of elementary, middle, and high school. Now, can I have them stand up? Mm-hmm. This is a list of the social studies writers, leaders, many of whom are here. So if you would stand up, Roy, David, Becky, yes. I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'd like to lead applause for these people. They've been incredible. Thank you. And as far as the contributors 2015, remember that focus group? We were going to do this quickly in a year, fewer, clearer, higher, and be done with it. Wishful thinking. We only had, I think, 32 people on that focus group, and we did divide up into various groups, but it was basically those 30. We learned our lesson. We needed to be more inclusive. We needed to have more people. We needed to divide up more accurately. So these are the 5 content area groups. And then we did have a bias review task force, as you saw in the examples, that would interact with the various content committees so that we could get this right. And again, if you want the full list of those people, you can look at the end of the standards document, and Both the focus group members and the task force members are listed there.
And I'd like to just back up to Michelle's question, because that was really important. So I wanted to go back and look at the standards. So what Jim referenced was 8.3.4, which is civil rights expanded. That's nested within a standard 8.3, civil rights in the post-World War II era, that goes through in a great amount of detail, civil rights in general, but there is a whole standard largely devoted to African-American civil rights. So again, the context of that change, thank you for calling that out, because we would hate to leave the impression that that wasn't in there. It is the fourth sub-standard down from this larger understanding the civil rights movement. So that's on page 114 and 115 if you all want to reference that yourselves.
What page, what?
Page 114 and 115 in the standards document.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. He was done with this one, sorry, I interrupted their flow.
So in our next steps, the process for developing standards calls for, when any major changes are made, for us to get public comment and feedback so that we involve even more voices from our state. And so what we're showing you here, we have scheduled 9 listen and learn sessions. These are the cities. Once we are ready to put this all up on the website, we'll actually put in the actual locations in those cities. But those are the cities and towns that we plan to be in. And also the survey, which is an online opportunity for people to have feedback, will be available on the website as well.
Okay. And that, again, I want to echo what Jim and Linda said. I want to extend my sincere thanks to them. They have worked tirelessly on this for many years, and for all of the help, and for everyone who drove here today to be with us as we walked through these standards. So thank you, and thank you for the board's support through this process as well. Again, it's been a long process for all of us, so thank you for your help. Superintendent?
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for the members of the task force and the committee members who are here to support the work, and for us to have an opportunity to recognize your commitment to the social studies standards. And with that, we will open it up to comments or questions from board members. I have a quick question. Public policy consultants, will they continue to be part of the listen and learn sessions?
Yes, they will. They're helping us with the design of that, which will be very similar to the one we used last time. And we appreciate their ability to get us the feedback and to analyze it. And it's a third eye on this work, somebody external.
Thank you, appreciate that. All right, comments, questions? I'll see
I'll
that
get in
Pam.
front of Tom here.
Sandra.
And Lupe, I think.
And Lupe and Pam.
So, thank you,
And
and I
Tom.
know that you guys have been out there working very hard and really trying to make sure you're inclusive in the groups, and we appreciate you all taking our feedback and allowing us to give that input. A couple of questions. You speak of the art of inquiry, and can you differentiate that from the 7 forms of bias? That's a first question. A second question is, as you are going out to those sites, are you going to still try to make sure that there's diversity and try to work with some of the groups that you work with to ensure diversity in every way that we think of in diversity to get input? And I think those are my 2 questions you've answered. I want to go back and look at the civil rights question and follow up on that one.
The 7 forms of bias came up very strongly in the Bias Review Committee, and so that will be included as well, or that will be one of the things that as we do the professional development learning opportunities, the Bias Review Committee is very strong about including that, but that is a separate way that the arc of inquiry would be a much larger undertaking for teachers in classrooms. It's very doable, and it could include the forms of bias as a reference point as far as deciding or determining what your opinion is or what your answer is to a compelling question.
And I just want to build on Jim's answer. This presentation didn't go into it because we were trying to talk about the content of the standards, and that's a lot of a lift. But we know that when these standards are adopted, the professional development that goes along with them to prepare our educators to implement them well is an enormous undertaking, one that we're prepared to do in collaboration with our partners around the room and not in this room. But there are many things, the standards, again, standards aren't curriculum, they aren't professional development, they aren't a script, they are an outline, a guide. They're a detailed guide, but there is a lot of work to do around implementation. So we look forward to the professional development aspects of helping educators implement these standards. That's just as important as the standards themselves, but we can't get to the professional development until we have the standards. So just want to make sure that we didn't lose the importance of that in this discussion.
And my other question was about the bias review, because we didn't talk that much about that function. And just going back to the to the 7 forms of bias, can you tell us a little bit about, would you compare the two? Would you compare the arc of inquiry to the 7 forms of bias? And then why would you, if so, why would you eliminate one or over the other? I did hear that you'll still use that, but.
The bottom line is that we would include both of them, that I would suggest that the arc of inquiry might be the main framework that you use, but then depending on what issues you addressed, what content standard you addressed, you would or would not include the 7 forms of bias.
That's an instructional piece, not a standards piece.
Are you all set, Pam?
I have more questions.
I just, as far as making sure that the groups we're still looking to be inclusive and diverse, looking for diversity. So making sure that we're not going into the communities, but we're also figuring out ways to make sure that there's diversity within those communities. Maybe picking up on some of the groups that you've met with and seeing how they're a part of those groups. And then I guess the other question was just the function of the bias review. If you could just say a little bit more of what that group did.
Bias review first. How the committee worked.
Yeah, as far as the bias review committee, that we had the 5 content committees start meeting first, but bias review couldn't do anything until the content groups met. So they started a little bit later, and they took a look at what the other content areas were proposing. As far as the makeup of the group, that we went out and identified 7 groups: African American, Arab American, Indigenous people, Asian Pacific Island, Latino, Hispanic, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, and attempted to get representatives from each of those groups so that we would have a perspective that we might not have gotten within the committees. Now, we did have various representatives from those groups on the content committees, but we wanted a separate group to look through a different lens and talk about these things. And this group was not the most contentious, but I think they had the most fun. They really got into it.
And just making sure that we're going back to those groups. Obviously, some groups, we'll hear from Tom, have been able to talk about, what they do or don't see in the revisions. I'm just making sure that the groups that we've talked to will be able to have input on what they do or do not see in this newer version.
We would certainly reach out to those groups that we've worked with already and let them know about the standards and seek their input, probably in a more of a communication, and please communicate back. And then also letting them know where they can find the online survey and where we would be holding the various listen and learn sessions.
And we do reiterate the importance during public comment of asking groups to go to the online survey and the listen and learn sessions, or both. Like, that is the purpose of structured public comment, is to gather everybody's comment simultaneously and together. So again, while we can make sure those groups see and have a chance, we would direct everyone to the public comment forums.
Right, and that's kind of like my question. How do we direct them? Are you all going to do some sort of concerted, intentional effort to try to direct them at least to those groups, but making sure that they know that this is out here? That's
we will. Something we did with ESSA is when it was time for public comment, we would send it to all of the subcommittees and say, public comment is open, so if you have something to say, we want you to say it, but please say it here, because this is where we officially collect all of the public comment, and it's very important that we get an official representation. So we will make sure to mail everybody. We actually ask all of you to help as well, very much, and everybody who's listening, the importance, we get as far in the public as all of you telling your neighbors and your friends and your networks to go and participate in the comments. So we appreciate partnership in that.
All set, Pam?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Cassandra, and then to Lupe.
So thank you again for all of the work that you guys have put into this. I know it's been a long 5 years, but I think we're getting very, very close. General question, so standards also impact testing, correct? So can you just remind me, in what years are social studies tested on our standardized tests?
Yep. They are tested in 5th, 8th, and 11th. And as an interesting side note, that is required by Michigan law, not federal law. It is the only testing subject that we test that's only required by Michigan law.
Thank you. And can you give us an example of how the standardized testing would demonstrate proficiency based on these standards?
That's a really good question. And we have not talked a lot about assessment because that is way cart before the horse. When you get to the standards and you get to some degree of implementation, we've seen that with science. We are just coming up to next year actually having an operational science test. But we would take, and I think this is referenced in one of Jim's slides, so I want to explicate it a little. We would take the standards themselves, and that is what goes into the development of the assessment. So this is the point about, do the examples get assessed or do the standards get assessed? The standards get assessed. You only get exposed to an example if there's a text-based prompt. So for instance, if we gave them the Constitution and said, read the Constitution and discuss, whatever, maybe that's a bad example, read this letter from a civil rights fighter or something, then there would be a specific example, but we work toward the standard. So that is the differentiation, because again, with the variation in local implementation at both the teacher and the district level, I mean, we can't assess, we don't know that everybody is learning about fill in the blank.
Right.
We do know that they are learning about, I'm going to use an actual example. We do know, of course I can't come to one, we do know that they are being exposed to Cold War conflicts, causes and consequences of major Cold War conflicts, global reconfigurations. So the assessment's built at the standard level. The challenge with social studies assessments, much like science, is it's once per grade level and it is a lot. So we will look forward to working like we have with science to think about some more innovative approaches to assessment, ways to get at these standards in ways that push toward that critical thinking and inquiry that's important. We all know we want to get away from the old-timey social studies test where it's like, who was the president first?
Right.
Who was the president second? We can all Google that now on our phones or whatever kids do, Snapchat it or something. So we don't need to test kids on rote memorization. We do need to make sure they understand about what's important about constitutional crises or et cetera, et cetera. So that's how the assessment, again, there is no assessment in development yet, but that is how we would approach it. And again, the science assessment gives us a good template for that.
A quick note there that Scott Koenig, who was the social studies assessment guy, was included in our meetings over the last couple of years, and then Susan Palmatier, who was new in assessment, has been to our meetings, is here today, and has been invited. So we are not proceeding without thinking what assessment might look like.
And one last question. So if we have specific areas that we've noticed in here, do you want us to share that now or as part of public comment, or how would you like the board to weigh in?
Well, we need to get it probably both ways. So depending on the specific area, if there's a chance to correct any confusion, I'd love to do that at the board table. If it's something you'd like to propose is changed, I think that's an important but a separate discussion. So I'd like to.
So let me give you, I have two examples that I can share. One, I'm looking at the side-by-side of 2018, 2019, and I'm thinking of, kids that are growing up today have never lived in a world where we weren't at war with Iraq and Afghanistan. 2018, as far as I can tell, had one reference post 9/11 to Iraq and Afghanistan, and the 2019 seems to have taken those out completely. So I'm just curious why, the longest war the country has ever been in is not referenced in our standards.
Well, and I would invite both my friends at the table and anybody else who'd like to chip in because the standards are deep. We still do have a standard 9.2, 9.2.2, 9/11 in responses to terrorism. So 9/11 is still in these standards.
Yes.
I think and then United States in the post-Cold War world, but maybe that's, I think it's do people want to call out other places where the near history is more highlighted? Because maybe I've only picked up one of them. And we want to continue to reiterate, like, even though it's only one substandard, it is not to prohibit or suggest that schools shouldn't address the issues about what, the current issues facing our students. Was someone volunteering? I would love to ask people from around the room.
As one of the chairs of the U.S. history team for the task force, I know that what you just referenced in particular, I have not looked at the side-by-side comparisons. I've been living primarily out of the main document, and we did not touch anything from that particular historical era, era 9 of U.S. history. We didn't touch anything in those standards, so if there's something missing from the cut and cap, I will definitely take a look. But in the actual standards document, that should still be there.
Okay.
It's not recommended for a change or
Okay.
Can you tell me what
'cause
page in the
nine-
side-by-side you're referencing?
It is page 123, and it is 9.2.2, and in the side-by-side, it looks like all the examples have been removed. So, and that removes Iraq and Afghanistan. So, that's just one thing that I'm just kind of pointing out, because I think it's, it's, for kids today, it's
Right.
present and it's history.
Okay, so, yes, so you are accurate in seeing that what was removed were the examples. Do you want to speak about that, but the standard remains? So remember what Jim said about when there aren't examples given, it's to give teachers more flexibility for what examples to use to teach this standard? Yes?
If you'll also look at the world history and geography on page 95, one of the themes that goes all the way through the 20th century is towards conflict. So that's the kind of thing that you have a general standard.
Well, I think to your point, Cassandra, if what you'd like to recommend is that some examples be put back in, that is feedback we would like to get that feedback during public comment. And I think we can all in this room appreciate the challenge of examples, right? Like, if you put in 5, you've probably missed 5. Which ones you put in and how they represent. And that's why they say may include but are not limited to. But again, if there's a place where there's really some missing examples, we can get some in. We're not opposed to that. We want to get to the right level of example and detail and would appreciate that feedback. Thank you, both of you, for your answers.
All set? Okay, Lupe and then to Tom.
Thank you. Well, where can I start? First of all, this is what I used to teach for many, many years, social studies. And I am saying as a former social studies teacher that all these hours that have been put into this document, 30,000 hours, you have had like what? 360 experts. I see a lot of good things. I like the point that Cassandra pointed out. This is just the recommended standards right now. We're going to improve these standards even more than where we were. What's important is that students are first. It sounds like every presentation today, we're putting students first, and that's very important. Now, I remember when we talked about the bathroom issue and all that, I said, oh my gosh, we're changing all of this, and the school districts were calling me and people were calling me. But then at the end of the day, I said, Lupe, this is not about them, it's not about you, it's about the students. And so this is about the students. Now, what I see in this document too is that there's more perspectives to the teaching of social studies. There's more voices that are being included. There's more views as to how the world is around us. There's more experiences. I like that you put the Latinos and Latinas. So, I can identify to that. We are also sharing the stage with more than just a white man. We're sharing the stage with me, with the African Americans, with LGBTQ. We're sharing the stage with more of the citizens. And that's very important because if you go into a classroom today, there's all kinds of students. coming from many different backgrounds, and they compose the classrooms that we stand in front of. It's more inclusive, more equitable, more rational. There's more rationality in it. So again, the major thing in the front of all of this is that students are first. Now, I think it is time for this document to go to public hearings and get more input, more, and then they're gonna share their experiences and all of these kind of thing and make this document even better. So I'm saying that after 5 years, 30,000 hours, and 360 experts, this document should move forward. And I, as a citizen and also a member of this board, you're going to Grand Rapids, I saw over there, on May the 6th. So I will help in any way I can to make people aware that this is happening. I don't know if you have a site yet, but I can surely find you a site. I know the KISD, I know Ron is here somewhere, and also the Grand Rapids Public Schools have a real nice auditorium, many auditoriums because they have different schools. But anyway, so I'm willing to help spread the word in any way I can in my city and in my area. So I thank you, all of you, for all the hours that you put into this document. And I think it is ready to go on to the public for more input to make it even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Lupe. And Tom, please.
Yeah, thank you. I was wanting to bring up the point also that Cassandra, I appreciate her mentioning that though it's not curriculum, I heard the same thing about Common Core as well. It's not curriculum, but it is standards, and tests are based on standards. They're not based on, that's what they're based on. So that's, in many ways, especially with high-stakes testing, if teachers want to keep their jobs, they teach to the test and to the standards in many ways, and they need to make sure that those are covered because it could negatively impact their ability to even have a job. Back in 2018, I know that Brian, helped create to make sure there was balance because there was a lot of concern. I think it's important that we get social studies right. I just heard that, the board president say that, 200,000 students have left public schools recently or in a.
We're educating 200,000 fewer students.
200,000 fewer, but a lot of them have left because of things like perception of social studies standards are not fair, they're biased. And so I think it's important, or they could be, and many feel that they are, and in other areas, not just social studies standards. But, and I guess I want to start off by saying, do you really believe that social studies standards are not about politics, and they can be not biased in any way?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's almost Orwellian to think that. I think that it's obvious what you put in, what you take out, what you don't include, what you include has a bias. I mean, somebody's making those decisions and deciding that this is important enough to put in, this is not important enough to put in. I mean, I think that most people would agree that these standards are going to be about politics. The idea is to try to get them as neutral as possible, or as unbiased as possible, but they're going to have bias for sure. I know that some of you know about Judge Warren, Michael Warren's memo. I sent it to my colleagues recently. He sent it to me recently. He's got a real job as a judge for 16 years, but yet he has been a former state board member of the Task Force on Social Studies, member of Focus Group. He's been all kind, he has extensive knowledge, and he was the one conservative that, or he calls himself constitutionalist, but conservatives in the state can say that he is a conservative. I'm not sure about the others. I don't think they self-identified, the other 120 on this committee or on this task force, but he's known as a good honest, high integrity conservative. And he, wrote this, and there's a lot of issues with the process. In one area, he says, many material suggestions the Civics Committee worked on and agreed to were struck or otherwise negatively altered with no analysis or communication at all. Why the Civics Committee, which he was on, members bothered to spend countless hours on thoughtful revisions and hard-fought compromises is beyond me. He notes that nowhere in the standards is, a huge list of people and concepts like taxation without representation is not in the standards.
I'd actually like to
Smith-
address a couple of those if we
I've got
can.
the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to.
Smith, Madison, Alexander the Great, Jesus, Muhammad. A lot of people are not included. I would say that, he looks at, he has a detailed list of things that are capitalized democratic values and they're not capitalized democratic values. Capitalized constitutional principles, capitalized constitutional, not, principles isn't. Democratic values is not. Principles isn't, but then sometimes they are. So it's very confusing throughout the whole document. And he basically, he talks about, for some reason, we don't want to talk about, the reason why this country was formed, or what we did as in the right to alter or abolish an oppressive government is presented as a remedy in the Declaration of Independence, and it's is the very justification of the Declaration. And yet we don't want to teach kids that, if we get too authoritarian in the government, that we should, think about, or our founders at least thought that we should think about abolishing it or altering it. Unalienable rights, there's a lot about individual rights, very scant, most if any were taken out about unalienable rights, and he points out that, individual rights are given and taken from governments. Authoritarians easily take them away, but unalienable rights are from God and should not be taken away. And then finally, he just concludes, if Michigan wants to set the bar for political bias, historical inaccuracy, confusion, then by all means usher this proposal forward. So, somebody who I trust a lot says this is extremely biased. When I look at what was deleted from 2018, I know there were concerns. And I can say, yeah, maybe there should be some give and take on what was presented in 2018. Maybe we need to add things. It was very useful. Well, at any rate, I can understand that. But then to see all the things that were deleted after hundreds and hundreds of hours of give and take and debate is mind-numbing to me. I mean, why would we remove in 6.2.9, evaluate the claim that a constitutional republic requires the participation of an attentive, knowledgeable, and competent citizenry? I mean, I think that's important, and I don't know why we would not want to point that out. He makes reference to something that's extremely confusing, explain that governments are structured to serve the people. And, there's many other reasons why in an earlier part of the standard, it talks about how they can be structured to subject the people, prop up ethnic groups, political parties. So there's certainly other reasons why governments are structured, not necessarily to serve the people. And also in this new standard, it talks about government assigning services and benefits to individual and groups and assigning individual and collective responsibilities, which is very unclear. And he says this sounds more socialist, fascist, or communist than American government. We're going to talk about the end of the Cold War in 8.1.3, but the deletion of Reagan and Gorbachev. I mean, if that's not bias, I don't know what is. That, tear down this wall is something that I think kids should understand, that we had a president who really helped bring about the end of the Cold War. And not political. I mean, I don't know why. It is just an example, but still an example of reference to the Palestinian state. Now, it's controversial and just unnecessary. It's not recognized as a state by Israel, United States, Switzerland, Canada. I mean, tons of countries, and yet we've elevated it to say that's going to be the example of the purpose may also include keeping an ethnic group or party in power. The omission of the 2nd, 3rd, 9th, and 10th Amendments in 4.1.1 shows a distinct bias. The omission of murderous socialists like Mao and Hitler, shows a certain bias. Why we wouldn't want kids to know that what these dictators and authoritarians and a strong central government can bring about. Why the growth of Christianity was removed in 5.2.3. There's just a lot of problems that I find that I don't want this to go out because, I mean, it's an old ploy. You start way left and then you give a little, so it's still extremely far left. I'd like something to go out that is unbiased, that is down the middle as best as possible. The one conservative that I can trust, I don't know, like I said, the makeup of the whole committee, is telling me, and he's got extensive history, that this is extremely biased, progressive left-wing standards. And if you want to keep getting people to, leave the public schools, if you want to, shrink any kind of interest in increasing public funding for public schools. I mean, there's a lot of taxpayers who say, I don't want public funding of this. This is exactly what I don't want. And this is the kind of thing that we risk by putting out something that I think is extremely biased and problematic. So I really, when the time is appropriate, I'll certainly make a motion to send this back. Hope it doesn't have to be all that long. As an example, Judge Warren has tons of proposed revisions. I'm not saying you should take them all, but it seems like it should be something that could be taken. The process that was undergone, I understand they didn't like the process last time. This process, I think conservatives and constitutionalists are going to say this was seriously flawed. One of the only constitutionalists that we know that was there that's a conservative says that all of his suggestions were pretty much written off and not accepted. And so I hope that there's an interest in not harming the public school system by putting this out and by moving this forward. Because like I said, you're starting way left. It's a tactic I've seen many times in politics. And then you give a little, you'll say, we'll change this and this, but it'll still be far left. You put it down the middle, we send something out next month, it gets a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do apologize. I've tried to keep a good list of your concerns, so I'm going to work through a few of them. I'd like to start with what Judge Warren said was eliminated from the standards, mostly because there's just some misinformation. So I think that's easiest. Some of these other issues you raise are larger conceptual questions. So in terms of, he lists Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Abraham. Page 69, it references classical civilizations and traditions. And so this would be one of those places where we don't list out Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, but obviously teachers would teach. I can't think you would teach Greek ideas about democracy and citizenship without referencing major Greek thinkers. So
They don't have to, though.
and then moving on to the question of Christianity, because that really struck me. World religions are referenced throughout the standards, most notably on page 70, page 91, page 92 in context. So it talks about the growth and development of world religions, Christianity. It talks, and it is fair to say that Christianity takes its place among world religions. And like Jim said in the overview, we're looking at the interaction between different world religions and how they developed, how they differ, how they interact, what they've done, but Christianity is still very much in the standards extensively and is almost always referenced as one of the examples when you say world religion. So to the example point, we may have other religions saying, why don't you list my religion as the example, even though the examples are more inclusive of different religions. Hobbes and Locke, he lists. Locke is in there, page 124. Taxation without representation is not listed that way, but page 76 is reasons for separating from Great Britain. So again, a teacher would teach taxation without representation as a component of that.
Or not. They don't
Adam
have to.
Smith is not named explicitly, but all throughout the economic standards are supply and demand, this idea of the government influence. Madison is not named explicitly, but the War of 1812 is. That's on page 78, 8th grade standards. Napoleon is not named specifically, but the French Revolution is, page 94. Marx is listed, not named specifically, but page 93 talks about socialism. Ford is not named specifically, but the Industrial Revolution is covered extensively. One example is page 108. Woodrow Wilson is in there. Judge Warren suggested he wasn't. He is. He's a whole standard. Page 109 is a standard that discusses Wilson and his opponents, the 14 points, et cetera, et cetera.
He admittedly told me yesterday that he didn't have nearly as much time, nor does he do it full-time.
Sure, I just,
But he just
again,
did
I
this
would,
quickly.
I would hate
But-
anybody to think we had a
So
standard that didn't
5% of it might
include,
be
you know,
oversight.
Hitler, he mentioned, Hitler is in there, page 96, page 112. FDR is on page 111. Martin Luther King, many times, page 115. Both the Russian Revolution and the Chinese Revolution are specifically mentioned. So this goes to the point, too, that many of these listed as not mentioned are. And then he brings up a point about, well, we have Carrie Chapman Catt mentioned twice, and that is accurate. In the standard 6.3.2, analyze the social, political, economic, and cultural changes that occurred during the progressive eras, there are a long list of examples. And I would, to Lupe's point, say that is appropriate, because often when we've told the story of the progressive era, we maybe haven't talked about Carrie Chapman Catt. And despite the fact that I was a social studies teacher and a sociology major, I wasn't sure who Carrie Chapman Catt was. So that is a good example of something that, a voice we need to explicitly call out. And I don't think that's about bias. I think that's about making more space at the table for everybody who should have been there all along. Let me just, a couple other small things. The capitalization, that's a fair point. One of the issues is that sometimes these things are used in titles where they are capitalized, and sometimes they are in a sentence where they are not. So if Judge Warren wants to point out some places where it's capitalized not in a title, or anybody does, we would like to look at that. But that's one, if you do a search for democratic values capitalized versus democratic values small, that would be an issue. I wanted to address the movement. So one of the challenges when you just look at the standards and what was moved, you have to go back, or what was, quote, cut, you have to go back to the point that Jim made in the PowerPoint, that's on my papers, about 6th grade. There was a big change. We moved content from, there it is. 6th grade is world geography. So when you move a standard that deals with not world geography out of 6th grade, it moved into 7th grade, right? Yes. So that is not a deletion as much as a movement. I know that might be a little hard to track, but again, just want to clarify that there are certain things that weren't cut. They were moved to give this realignment that we want for students to have a better sequential approach to history and teachers to have a better chance of teaching it. And then the last was on the process. I think, again, I'd open to Jim and Linda if they want to, again, sorry, there's a long list of concerns, so it's a long answer. You know, the way that the process worked, like we said, there were 120 task force members, there were task force chairs, and then the committee came together and did final editing. So it is probably fair to say that not every change proposed by every individual, it's certainly fair to say that not every change proposed by every individual of a task force got moved forward. It's also fair to say that not every change proposed by certain task force got moved forward. And I thought the New York Times article did a good job of sitting in there and that third voice of saying, here's kind of how it went, and here were some of the discussions. And then in the end, the committee of all the chairs did make some decisions on what to bring forward. And again, this is where public comment, if there's some things that we need to revisit or miss, there's still room to add back in, to alter it. But the process was from many comment to fewer to an actual thing. It was our job to bring you a set of standards. It was their job to give us a set of standards to bring you. So again, I think it's one of those, I wouldn't exactly use the words he did, but the point about not every change that was proposed is reflected is an accurate point. I wouldn't want to not recognize that. Anything I didn't cover?
Gorbachev.
Pardon?
The one about Gorbachev.
Reagan and Gorbachev?
Oh, Reagan's in there. Sorry, I put my note about Reagan on a different place.
But not in Cold War terms with.
Oh, yep, here he is. I've got his tab. Reagan. Transformation of American Politics, Standard 9.1.2, the growth of conservative movement politics, the role of Ronald Reagan, and then 9.2, shifting role of the United States on the world stage from 1980 to the present, so the United States in the post-Cold War up to the present.
See, that's where you're twisting his words. He didn't say he's not in there, but in 8.1.3, the discussion of the end of the Cold War, there's no mention of Gorbachev nor Reagan.
Okay, so
And that
end of the
happens
Cold
a
War
lot in
doesn't.
what you've been pointing out. Same with Hitler. He didn't say it wasn't in there, it was not in there. Or it was
Well, he did
removed.
say Hitler was struck on his
He
note. He
was,
said these places have been struck
omitted.
or omitted.
Hitler, Mao
So I'm just
omitted, and Kerry
clearing up
Chapman
that Hitler
Catt
was not struck or
listed
omitted.
twice instead.
Let me find the Reagan comment. In this. There are 20 specific examples for the progressive movement, but Reagan and any reference to conservatives is deleted. So I'm just responding to what he wrote, and I'm reacting to Standard 9.1.2 specifically names Ronald Reagan and conservatives.
I was looking at 8.1.3 in the Cold War.
Well, he comes back in 9.
But not in that reference.
Yep. Anything else on? Thank you.
So we have some more questions and comments, so Tiffany and then Nikki.
All right, my blood sugar's low, so if I'm hangry, I'm not trying to be. All right?
I was having problems.
Do my best here. You said Tiffany, then Nikki?
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm telling you.
But if you want,
We
you
gotta
can go
have a
ahead.
working lunch. No, you're good.
Doesn't matter. First, I want to say that I appreciate all of the time and consideration that went into this and that it was not rushed. I think that what was presented today is a good skeleton. We definitely need to change social studies standards and curriculum. I am concerned about how we do that, as you know, is everybody else. I've gotten a lot of constituent emails. I think we all have gotten a lot of constituent emails in opposition and with concerns. And I just got back. I got into Lansing after 2:00 this morning, coming from the NASB conference in DC, where I was also bombarded with the New York Times article. So not only are Michiganders watching, the nation is watching. And there's a lot of meat to this. And as you know, you guys took a lot of time, I think we need to take a lot of time to digest it and really comb through it. I'm concerned about bias as far as in the classroom when it's being taught, because people will interject their own, bias and thoughts as they're teaching. And I'm glad that you guys are going to do professional development to try to help with that, but that still will happen. Example, one of the countries I studied in was Brazil, and our tour guide was Portuguese. And she was telling us about the history there, and she said that when the Portuguese went to Brazil, they were, developing Brazil, and so they got the indigenous people to help. And they were lazy, so they went and got the Africans, and they came and they helped. I said, you mean you tried to enslave the indigenous people? And they knew the territory and wouldn't allow it, and so you enslaved the Africans. People put their own spin on things. And the whole Christopher Columbus, the way it's been taught, it's been crazy. It's more like a story of, we have this big Thanksgiving thing, and they brought turkeys, and it was all peachy. And that's just not true. Millions of people lost their lives. Millions of people were enslaved. In the United States, over 400,000 Africans were enslaved. Brazil, over 4 million. So I want to make sure that we're giving an accurate account of what happened and that we're sensitive to these subjects, so then we can move in. I think it's a good leadway into human rights. And then we can pick up that piece and begin to maybe heal it's a great way of doing that. And it starts in the classrooms, what we are teaching our children. Constituents are concerned about the gay rights piece being to the left and children being indoctrinated into becoming gay and a gay agenda being pushed. And I definitely, as a mother, even though my children are adults when they were in school, I definitely would not want them indoctrinated in anything. I don't want to be indoctrinated in anything, but I think that it is important to, this community has gone through so much that it's important to humanize them because so many people dehumanize them. And to make sure that they understand the sensitivity of the community and that they do deserve rights just like anybody else. So I think that's an important piece to be in there, is the balance that we use. As well as all of the other communities. I'm glad that Indigenous people were included as well, because we need a broader overview of that in the classrooms. Thank you.
Nikki, and then Lupe is asked to speak again.
I just wanted to say that I feel like when I'm listening to everybody at the table, I feel like what seems to be missing and is kind of off kilter is just there's a level of distrust in general, and there's a level of just a concern for maybe disrespect. There needs to be mutual respect and trust for these types of standards they may pass, but if they pass and that's not present at the core, they're not going to be successful in creating people with core values of any kind that are valuable. And not to be hangry, but to bring something up, Merriam-Webster defines politics as the activities, actions, and policies that are used to gain and hold power in a government or to influence a government. So very clearly, the standards of social studies teaching about such things as the form of government is in fact political. It's politics at its core. So I just wanted to gain that trust, be very honest about what we really are talking about. And you caught yourself a little bit when Cassandra was saying, hey, how will we test this since Michigan requires that? And you said, well, an example of Constitution, wait, never mind, that's a bad example. No, it's a good example. So what does the Constitution say our form of government is? So, and does the arc of inquiry adequately tackle that? So I feel like yes, this is political. I mean, it is very political. And so to gain the trust that has to be at this table, to teach our children to be mutually respectful of one another, create room and space at the table like Lupe is talking about, honor and respect Tom and the many people who feel like this is very, very biased. I just want to make sure that we're communicating from that particular perspective, the truth, that we need to be honest, this is political. And we deserve to trust each other and be mutually respectful of one another.
So I appreciate the pushback on the statements that standards aren't political. Standards themselves should not be. We should not let the Republicans win and get what they want, or the Democrats win and get what they want. Then we failed at the idea of presenting all the perspectives and the diversity of thought that is important to our country. So I take your point that as much as we say they're not political, they become political. We want to depoliticize them as much as possible. Linda made the point earlier that if we send these standards out and conservatives say it's biased and liberals say it's biased, then it doesn't have enough examples of my thing, then maybe we found the middle ground where it's got roughly equal examples of the perspectives. I will admit and acknowledge that is a challenging task, but it is, when you ask how do we approach this, we definitely approach it from, can we find a neutral fair representation of all the information and details, and social studies is possibly the hardest subject to do this in. And we need to keep that discourse open about that, because if that's what we're striving for, then we have to talk honestly about did we get there or not. That's why the bias committee was important, and that's why this discussion is important. And just one clarification, I stopped myself on the Constitution because it's actually a standard, not an example, and I was trying to use, we don't test examples. But thank you for asking why I stopped myself, because it was I was like, no, that's actually, we would test on that because it is actually at the standard level. So, but thank you for giving me a chance to clarify.
Thank you, and now we'll go to Lupe.
I just had to say this. I was contacted, and I contacted superintendents throughout the state. And I contacted teachers throughout the state and other stakeholders throughout the state to see how they felt about the standards. And the feedback that I got was that they liked the revisions versus the first document for the same reasons that I quoted before. And there was inclusiveness, there was more perspectives, more voices, more views, more experiences. The stage is being shared with all groups now. We are embracing the LGBT community and dignifying them. And it's not about us adults, it's about the students. It's about the students. And as I said before, when the bathroom situation came up, I was, oh no, whatever. And everybody, oh no, Lupe. But then I said, no, it is about the students. And this is what students first all the time. And what the superintendents, teachers, and other stakeholders told me, that this are more inclusive. Can there be improvement? Yes. There, there's good recommendations on the table already. So you have a good conversation to start with as we proceed with the hearings. But the educational world is supportive of the standards. Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
I'd like to make a motion. My motion would be due to the serious liberal bias, historically inaccurate, and sloppy nature of these proposed social studies standards that they not go out yet for public comment, but rather they go back to the committee to address this above serious flaws and then go out for public comment.
Okay, so because we are in the committee of the whole, we need to go to the regular meeting. So we'll move to the regular meeting, and then Tom will make your motion. So we'll move now to our regular Board of Education meeting, and Tom has made a motion. Second.
Well, wait, somebody has to make that motion to go
Okay,
back to the
motion.
meeting,
All right.
not you.
All right, so we need a motion to move to regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we are now in our regular meeting. And Tom, could you please repeat your motion?
I'll make it a little bit simpler. Just due to the perceived bias, or I would say the biased nature, historically inaccurate and sloppy nature of the proposed standards, that they not go out yet for public comment, but rather they go to the committee to address the above serious flaws and then go out for public comment.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have support?
I'll second, just in the spirit of getting more neutral ground.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have support. Discussion. Yes, Michelle.
I respect you, Tom, and what you have to say, and I think I certainly want this to be standards that everyone can get behind and agree are great. I just don't know if it's possible at this point. I mean, after so many years, I'm sort of wondering if it's even possible. And I guess I'm wondering too, is if we as a board look more seriously at the concerns that you have and to see how they should be addressed before passing. To Judge Warren's concerns and have some discussion on that here. I wonder if, I know that you want to delay them going out, but I just, all the work and all the years and all that. I'm just wondering if we can just talk about those concerns, make it a concerted effort to make sure that that we look at them seriously before we vote on them, and to see if they're included, and if that might be another way to address it without having to delay them going out, is what.
Okay, thank you, Michelle and Cassandra.
So I view this as part of the public comment period. You know, everyone's comments are important. They're all valuable. In 2018, I was thoroughly opposed to the standards that came out in 2018, but I did not stop them from going from public comment, because this is the process. This is how you get better. And so as much as I respect Judge Warren, he's one person with an opinion, and it's a valuable opinion, but it's part of an entire realm of opinions, and I don't think you stop the process because one person's opinion might diverge from someone else's. So from my perspective, I think it's helpful to send it out for public comment, and that's where these concerns get addressed.
Okay, Tom?
I would just say that if Judge Warren thought that the process was fair and the outcome was more liberal, I wouldn't have as much concern. I would have, I would be okay with them going out. I think that the flaw is that, we're sending out something that is far to the left, in his opinion, and in many people who's emailed us their opinions as well. And again, there's going to be, I know how this is going to play out. They're going to say, okay, we're going to give a little bit, we're going to give here and there, but, when you start at 95% in one direction, you give 5%, then you're still at 90%. And so, I just feel that the process was flawed. Let's make it shouldn't take more than a month. Let's make sure that the process is as best we can, because that was the problem with the last time, apparently. And then you send them out. That's something that's a little bit more unbiased and a little bit cleaner. And I just think that would be worth the wait.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And Pam?
So, I just express again to the staff, the previous process that was used was very much weighted to one side. And so appreciating this more center ground. And so I just say that we call the vote.
Okay. Yep. All right. Judy?
Just one comment, and again, I appreciate all the work that has gone into this, and as Vanessa said right at the beginning, these are standards. And the examples that are used are examples. The PD and the resources used by the teachers in the classroom will be what will make the difference, as long as the standard is taught. The end of the Cold War, I personally, as a social studies teacher, I don't know how I would have taught that unless I talked about Gorbachev and Reagan. I couldn't have done it. So again, I just want us to keep centered on the fact these are standards, and not what exactly it will happen in the classroom. So, and the PD becomes extremely important.
And I call the vote.
Okay, we are going to call the vote. Okay, thank you, Judy. We'll call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay, oh.
I didn't know what you were
Okay,
voting
so we're voting on Tom's motion. Let me start
Okay,
again.
all right,
We are
okay.
voting on Tom's motion, okay? All those in favor of Tom's motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Nay, okay. Motion fails. We are now, pardon me?
What was the vote?
The vote was 2-6. The regular meeting is now adjourned, and we are going to recess for lunch. And we typically have an hour for lunch, but we are going to abbreviate our lunch. Can we agree to be back in 30 minutes? How about 35 or 40?